Naruto. I have an attribute panel. Chapter 21. Ninja Academy, Classroom. As soon as Tai entered the classroom, he scanned the room and found Kakashi and Obito locked in a rivalry, with a helpless Rin standing beside them. Tai also found it amusing. Kakashi always maintained a cool demeanor towards everyone. If you didn't initiate a conversation, he might not utter a single word for a long time. Yet, when it came to Obito, the two seemed like natural arch-rivals. Obito would seize any opportunity to retort to Kakashi, and Kakashi, in turn, could break Obito's composure with just a single sentence. Lost in thought, Tai approached the trio. The two bickering boys hadn't noticed Tai yet, but Nohara Rin was the first to spot him. She watched Tai walk towards them. Tai, is something wrong? Rin asked. Rin, I'm looking for Kakashi, but it seems he's too busy to talk to me, Tai said with a chuckle, looking at Kakashi. Rin also covered her mouth, stifling a laugh. Just then, Kakashi noticed Tai. He knew why Tai was looking for him and immediately switched from his battle mode to his aloof posture. Seeing Kakashi's expression and remembering his earlier thoughts, Tai couldn't help but laugh again. My apologies, I just thought of something funny, Tai quickly apologized, realizing his impropriety. Kakashi was bewildered by the laughter, but seeing Tai's explanation, he didn't suspect anything else. He then took out a scroll from the ninja tool pouch on his leg and handed it to Tai. Tai didn't think much of it. After taking the scroll, he looked at it, his face filled with shock. Could Kakashi have secretly taken this out? Kakashi seemed to read Tai's mind. Don't overthink it. My father personally asked me to give this to you. He then relayed his father's philosophy that people are the foundation to Tai. Tai listened, filled with reverence. He truly was a person who would abandon a mission for his comrades. In his heart, people were the most important. This favor was huge, how would he ever repay it? Thinking about the future, White Fang's suicide incident, he wondered if he could change something, preventing Tsukumo Hatake from that tragic end. Tai, what are you thinking about? You're so lost in thought, Kakashi asked, seeing Tai remain silent for a long time. Oh, I was just thinking that I must not let down Senior Tsukumo's expectations. Kakashi, after training today, accompany me to buy a sword, and give me some advice, Tai set aside his thoughts. The White Fang suicide incident was still about 3 years away, and it was too early to think about such things now. He needed to focus on becoming stronger, otherwise, he wouldn't even have a chance to help when the time came. Alright, I can certainly give you some advice on that, Kakashi readily agreed. Hey, Tai, are you going to learn swordsmanship? Our Uchiha-style swordsmanship is famous throughout the ninja world. Obito interjected, having overheard their conversation. Idiot, can you teach your Uchiha swordsmanship to outsiders? Kakashi couldn't help but retort. Arrogant Kakashi, who are you calling an idiot? Obito realized his words were unreliable and used the opportunity to drop the topic. Whoever asks is an idiot, Kakashi was merciless. This truly infuriated Obito, sending him into a rage. He no longer cared if others were present and started bickering with Kakashi again. Tai watched from the side, feeling helpless. They truly were a pair of living treasures. Rin, I'm leaving now. Class is about to start, Tai called out to Nohara Rin. Okay. A peaceful day. During the break, Tai quickly skimmed through the scroll. It was indeed a comprehensive and foundational swordsmanship scroll, but it also emphasized speed, precision, and ruthlessness, perfectly aligning with the characteristics of the White Fang's swordsmanship. In terms of basic swordsmanship, it would be difficult to find a better scroll in the entire Hidden Leaf village. You have read Hatake Basic Swordsmanship. Related insights have improved. You have learned Hatake Swordsmanship LV0, 1/10. You have focused on learning Hatake Swordsmanship. Ninja Apprentice Profession Experience +1. Looking at the prompts on the panel, Tai felt his pressure increase. It was another skill that required constant practice, truly a mix of pain and joy. Hokage's office. The third Hokage, engrossed in his peeping, was startled by a bang, and quickly hid his crystal ball under the desk. Tsunade, who had just entered the office, saw Hiruzen Sarutobi's concealing movements and knew exactly what he had been up to. She curled her lips in disdain. If it had been Jiraiya, she would have already punched him. Tsunade, You should at least show some respect to me, your teacher. I am the Hokage, after all, Hiruzen Sarutobi said helplessly. To be honest, he felt very guilty towards Tsunade, his student. There were still many unanswered questions surrounding the deaths of Nawaki and Dan. The village wasn't unwilling to investigate, but rather, it didn't dare to. This also led to Tsunade and him being outwardly cordial but inwardly distant. Jiraiya had been outside the village for 3 years, using the excuse of gathering intelligence. Both he and Tsunade knew in their hearts that this matter was most likely related to Danzo, but what could be done? He couldn't bring himself to deal with Danzo, not just because of personal feelings, but also because of the current political landscape of Konoha. He did not possess the immense strength and prestige of the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju, or the second Hokage, Tobirama Senju. He couldn't subdue the entire Konoha through personal power alone, and could only rely on this method of separation of powers and checks and balances to stabilize the Hokage's position in the early stages. And now, to change it would require major surgery, a decision he truly couldn't make. Tsunade didn't waste words with him. She directly produced an internship certificate for Hiruzen to sign. Of course, she couldn't let Tai directly help at Konoha Hospital. Wouldn't that be a loss of face for her, Tsunade? She had to at least get Tai an official position. Thus, this internship certificate came into being, the kind that allowed him to earn a salary. Hiruzen Sarutobi took the document and glanced at it, surprised. Are you planning to take on a disciple? It wasn't surprising that Hiruzen Sarutobi thought this way. Without any familial ties or close connections, who would bother to do this for someone, and even go through the Hokage? No such intention. What can I teach him in my current state? Tsunade said helplessly, thinking of her hemophobia. He's a promising talent. I've tested him, his medical ninjutsu and knowledge are very solid. What he lacks now is practical experience. Letting him train at the hospital will allow him to progress even further. Hiruzen Sarutobi's expression darkened at her words, and he stopped thinking about it. Since you've tested him, I won't say more. Matsushita Tai is indeed a good child. I've been keeping an eye on him for a while now. Let him go to the hospital later to find Bawako. Although Tsunade claimed not to be taking on a disciple now, seeing her efforts for this Matsushita Tai, their relationship must be quite close, especially since Tsunade had also helped introduce that special medicine before. Now, as long as Tsunade could be productive and forge bonds with people in the village, instead of spending her days in gambling dens or getting drunk, he would be very happy. Ultimately, this was a teacher's way of making amends to his student. Tsunade, having received the signed internship certificate, said no more and turned to leave the Hokage's office. Outside the door, she looked at the certificate in her hand. I'm not eating your food for nothing. Now that I've gotten you this, let's see how you'll thank me. Thinking this, she tucked the certificate into her chest. Konoha Grove. After school, the three gathered again for training. Might Guy was practicing his straight punches against a large tree. The tree trembled with each of Guy's swings, and he loudly counted each punch. He had already reached 583. I'm going to throw 2,000 punches today. If I don't, I'll run 5 laps around Konoha. His passionate shouts were incessant. On the other side, Kakashi was teaching Tai basic swordsmanship. Kakashi stood on a bluestone, holding his short sword. The light reflecting off the blade swept across Tai's tensed fingertips. He was gripping the hilt in an awkward posture, sweat dripping from his chin onto the guard iron. The sword in his hand was a practice sword Kakashi had brought from home. Your tiger's mouth should grip the tsuba, and your thumb should press here. Kakashi's kunai handle suddenly tapped Tai's whitened knuckles. Gripping too tightly will cost you flexibility, too loosely, and the enemy will knock it away. Tai adjusted his grip as if shocked by electricity, finding that the diamond pattern on the hilt perfectly fit the curve of his fingers. In the distance, the thudding sound of Guy striking the wooden dummy intertwined with the whoosh of the blade cutting through the air, creating a unique rhythm. Now, try a diagonal slash. Kakashi stepped back 3 paces. As Tai swung his sword, the silver-haired boy suddenly threw 3 shuriken. The moment the blade clashed with the projectiles, Tai felt a numbness in his tiger's mouth. The adjusted grip had evenly distributed the impact across his entire palm. As dusk deepened, Kakashi picked up a branch and sketched in the dirt, There are 7 variations of gripping in Hitaki-style swordsmanship. This is the absolute foundation. The lines of a hand drawn in the dirt gradually extended into a figure holding a sword. Remember, the sword is an extension of your limb. The center of gravity when holding the sword should flow as naturally as your breath. As Kakashi taught, the panel constantly displayed notifications. You have practiced Hitaki swordsmanship. Related insights have improved. Your skill Hitaki swordsmanship has improved. Experience +1. Congratulations, your skill Hitaki swordsmanship has been upgraded to LV10-100s. You have focused on practicing Hitaki swordsmanship. Ninja Apprentice Profession Experience +1. With the skill upgrade, a wave of understanding about Hitaki swordsmanship merged into Taiyi's entire being. Taiyi gazed at the red mark pressed into his palm by the sword hilt, then suddenly flipped his wrist and twirled the sword. A flicker of surprise crossed Kakashi's eyes. This movement, which should have been introduced after 3 weeks of practice, had been self-taught by Taiyi through his understanding of the center of gravity. The evening breeze stirred up a carpet of maple leaves, and the afterimages of 2 long swords gradually overlapped amidst the swirling red foliage. The night in Konoha's streets was dyed amber by paper lanterns. A few withered leaves floated in the cracks of the bluestone pavement, making a rustling sound as they were crushed by pedestrians wrapped in animal skins. A bronze wind chime hanging from the eaves swayed, startling a night moth perched on top of a lantern. The phosphorescent dust shaken from its wingtips gleamed a faint blue in the moonlight. Bronze tusks clanged above the entrance of the weapons shop. As the door was pushed open, the pine wood hinge let out a long creak, waking the old cat curled behind the counter. 12 rows of ebony racks fanned out, and countless Senbon needles were piled like a thorny bush in a celadon dish. Shurikens in the glass display case gleamed with the indigo-purple cold light characteristic of poison. On the iron pear wood rack in the southeast corner, 7 katana were slanted, drawn 3 inches from their scabbards, a hint of silver frost clinging to their blades. The 3 stepped into the brightly lit weapon shop. The cold gleam of the blades reflected on Taiyi's excited face. Kakashi had already taken a scroll from his ninja tool pouch and unrolled it. The selection criteria for the Hitaki-style sword technique danced across the yellowed silk. The sword's spine must be as straight as a pine tree. Kakashi's fingertip traced the display rack, and amidst the metallic hum, he drew out a simply adorned short sword. Taiyi's wrist dipped slightly as he took it. The red marks from the birchwood hilt had not yet faded, and now new ones were added. Anything over 3 caddies will affect the swing trajectory. The silver-haired youth balanced the sword horizontally on his palm, the tip and the hilt perfectly aligned with the tiger's mouth of his hand. The center of gravity is best 3 inches in front of the guard. Might Guy leaned in, marveling at the blade's pattern. He suddenly punched the sword. A clear, resonant hum echoed through the shop. My father said that swords forged with Tamahagane steel sound like a mountain spring flowing over quartz. Kakashi gestured for Taiyi to inject chakra into the blade. The dense wind-style chakra actually flowed along the edge, creating a faint blue aura. This was a ninja sword with a small amount of chakra metal mixed in. The shopkeeper brought 3 similarly shaped swords. Kakashi held each one level and performed a test cut. When the third one sliced through the air, the sound of the blade cutting the wind suddenly became dense. This is it. Taiyi was pleasantly surprised to find that his shoulder and elbow naturally dropped when he swung the sword, and the blade's trajectory perfectly matched the diagonal cutting angle described in the scroll. Moonlight streamed through the window lattice, falling on the cloud pattern of the Tsuba. A smile flashed in Kakashi's eyes. The weight distribution of this sword was exactly the same as the first practice sword his father had made for him years ago. Boss, how much is this sword? Taiyi didn't hesitate. It's 30,000 ryo, a fair price, the shopkeeper said with a smile. Can you give me a discount, boss? Hearing that it was 30,000 ryo, Taiyi couldn't help but feel a pang of pain. After all, not long ago he was racking his brains trying to figure out how to make money. Customer, all our prices are clearly marked, and we never haggle, the boss said with a firm expression, seemingly confident in Taiyi's purchase. All right. Hearing this, Taiyi didn't say anything more. To say more would be disrespectful to the sword. The 3 walked out of the shop. Taiyi's face was full of joy as he caressed his newly acquired short sword. He then strapped the sword to his back. From now on, he would always carry a sword, to get used to various postures while armed. Kakashi, Guy, come to my place for dinner tonight. I bought all the ingredients early this morning. Oh, that sounds great. It's been a while since I've tasted Taiyi's cooking. Guy said, moved to tears. Then we should go back and inform our families, Kakashi readily agreed. Then you two go ahead. I'll go back and start cooking. It should be just about ready by the time you arrive. With that, the three rushed home. At home, in the kitchen. Taiyi, wearing a dark blue apron, bustled in front of the stove. The miso soup in the iron pot gurgled, and the sweet aroma of taiyaki wafted from the steamer, filling the small kitchen with a warm yellow glow. Teriyaki chicken thighs, marinated to perfection, were neatly arranged on the cutting board. He had specially prepared the sauce beforehand with honey and sake. Last dish. Taiyi wiped the sweat from his brow as he plated the tempura. Golden shrimp tails curled from the batter, and fried lotus root slices shimmered with an amber sheen. A knock sounded at the genkan at just the right moment, and even through the door, Guy's energetic shout could be heard. Taiyi. We're here. Opening the door, he saw two figures. Kakashi leaned against the wall with his arms crossed, the moonlight silvering his hair. Guy was excitedly sniffing the air, his green jumpsuit covered in dust from training. Excuse the intrusion, they said in unison. As Kakashi took off his shoes, his short sword clinked against the sword rack. When the dishes filled the low table, Guy's eyes widened. 5 layers of bento boxes were stacked with rice balls and tamagoyaki. Grilled saori, its crispy skin sprinkled with sancho pepper, and even the miso soup had carrot slices carved into maple leaf shapes floating in it. Kakashi's nose beneath his mask twitched slightly. Years of eating his father's dark cooking made him especially sensitive to the feast before him. I'm going to dig in. Guy's chopsticks swept across the table like a whirlwind, picking up tempura that arced through the air. This fried shrimp. The batter is so crispy and hot, hot, hot. The boy, scalded by the hot oil, puffed out his cheeks in blue air, but couldn't bear to spit it out. Kakashi unhurriedly spooned up some tofu. The moment the soup touched his palate, his pupils contracted. The dashi broth, made from kelp and bonito, was even more delicious than the signature soup at the dango shop. Taiyi smiled, refilling their mugs with mujika. The rising steam blurred the ninja scroll painting on the wall. When Kakashi picked up his third teriyaki chicken leg, his perpetually masked face suddenly froze. Guy, his mouth full of rice balls, mumbled a reminder. Hey, Kakashi, no one's fighting you for it. The silver-haired youth's ear tips flushed red, and his fingers hovered at the edge of his mask for a moment. As the black fabric slid down, the moonlight happened to illuminate the corner of his mouth, stained with sauce. Taiyi and Guy both froze. Neither had expected this cool-headed genius to puff out his cheeks like a small animal when eating. About the sword technique lessons. Taiyi broke the silence at an opportune moment, placing the tail of the grilled fish into Kakashi's bowl. Today's learning made me realize the importance of having a good teacher. Sword training isn't something you can just do by self-study. Thank you so much for today. Guy suddenly put down his bowl and chopsticks, clasped his hands together, and bowed his head to Kakashi. Thank you for teaching me chakra control too. Last time you said, taijutsu type ninja need precise chakra distribution even more, and now I can kick through rocks without hurting my ankles. The chirping of insects outside the window suddenly became clearer. Kakashi's knuckles, gripping the teacup, turned white. After a long moment, he said in a low voice, It's I who should be thanking you. His gaze swept over the new sword on Taiyi's back. I also want a companion who can practice swordsmanship with me. Moonlight streamed through the window lattice, flowing onto the low table. The shadows of the 3 boys intertwined on the wall. By the time Guy started his 5th bowl of miso soup, Taiyi and Kakashi were already resting, rubbing their full bellies. I'm so full, I can't eat another bite. By the time they said goodbye, the street was already covered in starlight. Kakashi pulled his mask up to his nose, then suddenly turned and tossed out a remark. We'll continue learning tomorrow. Guy struck his classic pose in the moonlight. Tomorrow, we'll run 20 laps around the forest of death. Taiyi, want to bet on who finishes first? The moment the door closed, Taiyi leaned against his newly bought ninja sword and chuckled softly. The lingering warmth on the hilt reminded him of Kakashi's overlapping hands when demonstrating how to grip the sword, and Guy's high fives that numbed his tiger's mouth when testing the sword. The lingering scent of bonito drifted from the kitchen, and the 3 empty bowls lined up on the low table reflected the moonlight, like a silent vow. After seeing the two often returning to the house, it was already very late. Today, he could only do basic taijutsu and meditation exercises at home. Name: Matsushita Tai. Occupation: Ninja Apprentice LV6 926 1000s. Talents: Diligence can compensate for lack of talent, academic ace. Age: 6 years old. Constitution: 13. Strength: 15. Agility: 13. Spirit: 20. Chakra: 3100-5350. Attribute points: 9. Skill points: 9. Fire Release Nature Transformation LV2 66 200s. Wind Release Nature Transformation LV2 36 200s. Yang Release Nature Transformation LV2 18 200s. Skills: Basic Taijutsu LV8 12 13 1400, Basic Meditation LV8 12 12 1400, Chakra Cultivation Technique LV8 12 53 1400, Ninja Tool Throwing LV7 687 1200s, Transformation Jutsu LV6 515 1000s, Clone Jutsu LV7 537 1200s, Substitution Jutsu LV6 853 1000s, Fire Style Fireball Jutsu LV6 353 1000s, Fire Style. Phoenix Flower Jutsu LV6 935 1000s, Wind Style. Great Breakthrough LV6 712 1000s, Healing Jutsu LV6 923 1000s, Hitaki Sword Style LV1 32 100s. Evaluation. Learning sword techniques has compensated for your shortcomings, but you are still cannon fodder for a genin. Watching the constant changes in the panel data, Tai felt full of motivation. Cultivation was addictive, and that was exactly how Tai felt now. He continued to cultivate until the early hours of the morning before washing up and going to bed. The next morning, Taichi woke up exceptionally early, perhaps still buzzing from the excitement of learning swordsmanship the day before. With his short sword strapped to his back, he stepped out of his room while the sky was still faintly lit and headed towards his training spot by the river. The riverside in the early morning was exceptionally serene. Schools of fish could be seen dragging their moonlight white tail fins through the water, scattering the reflected starlight into shimmering silver dust. Occasionally, a few chirps of insects echoed from afar, yet they failed to break the profound tranquility. Upon reaching the riverbank, Taichi felt refreshed by the peaceful scenery. He started with some warm-up exercises, loosening his body, then drew the short sword from his back with a reverse grip. The newly purchased short sword gleamed with a cold light as it was unsheathed, and a dewdrop clinging to the spine of the blade fell into the river, startling a few silver fish. He adjusted his grip according to the basic scroll of the Hitaki-style swordsmanship, the red mark on the birch handle fitting perfectly into the tiger's mouth. Kakashi's instructions from last night became even clearer in the morning breeze. The initial swings of the blade were still stiff, the sound of it cutting through the air like a blunt object scraping against cotton. During the 37th diagonal slash, the blade suddenly emitted a clear, resonant hum, and the cloud patterns on the tsuba shimmered in the morning light. Taichi was surprised and delighted to feel his center of gravity flowing naturally with subtle adjustments of his wrist, as if the blade and his arm bones were gradually becoming one. Sweat dripped from his tense jaw onto the iron guard, yet he mechanically repeated the chopping motions, allowing the numbness to spread from his knuckles to his shoulder blades. You have practiced Hitaki-style swordsmanship, and your understanding has improved. Your skill, Hitaki-style swordsmanship, has improved, gaining +1 experience. You have focused on practicing Hitaki-style swordsmanship, gaining +1 experience for the ninja apprentice profession. In the river's reflection, the young man's figure overlapped with the swaying reeds. When the 1000th swing was completed, the morning sun just pierced through the thin mist, plating the blade with a faint golden hue. On the riverbank, among the uneven slash marks, a few neatly severed blades of grass trembled lightly in the morning breeze. His invigorating workout finished, Taichi was covered in fine sweat. Looking at his swordsmanship skill, which was about to level up, Taichi suppressed the urge to continue practicing it and instead turned to ninjutsu. There was simply not enough time, with so many things to practice, he had to allocate time to each. Whenever this happened, Taichi would think of the shadow clone jutsu, wondering when he would be able to learn it. Taichi stood by the riverbank, his hands quickly forming seals. Rat, tiger, dog, ox, rabbit, tiger. He completed the 6 seals in 2 seconds, a speed that wasn't slow, but compared to Itachi Uchiha's 7 seals per second, it was truly nothing to boast about. Fire style. Phoenix flower jutsu. Taichi exhaled, spewing out 12 fireballs in one breath, grouped in threes, attacking in 4 directions in a P formation. The fireballs landed on the distant water, raising large clouds of steam. Taichi was quite satisfied with the effect of this jutsu, as both its casting speed, power, and control surpassed the level of an average genin. Thinking this, Taichi formed seals again, performing the same fire style, Phoenix flower jutsu, but this time, instead of scattering them, Taichi controlled each fireball to strike the same spot. A continuous series of muffled booms echoed, and that section of the water surface continuously caved in. Next, Taichi cycled through the few ninjutsu he knew, stopping only when his chakra was almost depleted. He didn't deliberately refine chakra, letting the chakra refining technique operate instinctively in his body. While this made chakra recovery slower than if he focused on it, it had the advantage of not depleting his body. After all, this was Konoha, not wartime, so safety was somewhat guaranteed. A slower chakra recovery was fine. After finishing his morning workout, Taichi once again strapped on his short sword and headed home to wash up, eat, and prepare for school. Ninja Academy, classroom. As soon as Taichi stepped into the classroom, he attracted a lot of attention from his classmates, as he was carrying a sword to school today, which was a big departure from his usual self. Taichi, are you learning swordsmanship? Shizune, who was nearby, exclaimed, pointing at the scabbard on Taichi's back. Before Taichi could answer, Guy had already rushed over like a whirlwind. Sweat still hadn't dried on his green jumpsuit, indicating he had just finished another run around the school. Wow! His eyes sparkled as he stared at Taichi with the sword on his back. You're planning to carry that sword with you from now on, aren't you? Kakashi also walked over at this moment, scrutinizing Taichi. A muffled comment came from beneath his mask. The grip angle has been adjusted by 5 degrees, making it more suitable for reverse slashes. He noticed Obito stumble over the scabbard as he pushed his way through the crowd, and a faint smile touched his lips. What a pair of lively characters. What's so great about that? Obito grabbed his forehead protector to steady himself. Our Uchiha-style swordsmanship is much more impressive than that. He deliberately tossed a kunai into the air, spinning it 3 times before catching it. See. This is the real deal. Idiot, Kakashi interjected, neither too softly nor too loudly. Didn't you stab your own forehead protector during shuriken practice last week? Rin quickly smoothed things over. Obito is also very strong. Didn't he use the great fireball jutsu to burn through 3 targets earlier? She then turned to Taichi, shaking some medicine from her medical pouch in her hand. If you practice with a sword, your shoulder muscles can easily get strained. Do you want me to teach you how to apply a hot compress with herbs? Thank you, but no need, I also know a bit of medical ninjutsu, Taichi replied with a smile. Even Kakashi was startled by this, wondering when Taichi had quietly learned medical ninjutsu. Everyone else also had a look as if they'd seen a ghost. That's amazing. Guy was even moved to tears. Taichi must be working hard where we can't see him. My passion is burning. Hey. Is that the main point? Asuma poked his head out from the back row, a half-eaten French fry still in his mouth. I heard the Hitaki-style swordsmanship's can split a waterfall. When will Taichi show us a demonstration? Kurenai, who had walked over, pulled Asuma's sleeve. Idiot. True swordsmanship only unleashes its great power when combined with chakra flow. Do you think this is a juggling act? Besides, Taichi just started learning. My apologies, Asuma quickly said. Taichi looked at the two of them suspiciously, wondering when their relationship had become so good, but then quickly dismissed the thought, as it didn't concern him much. Actually, Taichi gently caressed the cloud patterns on the tsuba, the coolness of the metal seeping into his fingertips. When I first learned the basics yesterday, my tiger's mouth even got blisters. He smiled gratefully at Kakashi, thanks to someone who corrected my posture by tapping with a kunai handle. Guy suddenly slammed his hands on the desk, the loud noise startling everyone. It's decided. Tonight, when we spar in taijutsu, I'll use my newly learned leaf whirlwind against your new swordsmanship. His thick black eyebrows almost flew off his hairline. Burn, my youth. Everyone else broke into a sweat. Count me in. Obito also didn't forget to join the fun. He jumped onto the desk and pointed at Kakashi, saying, I want to spar with Kakashi. If you don't mind losing again, I have no objections, Kakashi said casually. Laughter erupted in the classroom, and the morning light streaming through the window cast a golden edge on the young ninjas. Taichi gripped the sword hilt, the metal gradually warming with his body temperature, much like the warmth given by his noisy companions. A bell rang, and the day's classes officially began. As exams drew near, the number of theoretical classes at the academy noticeably decreased, with the curriculum shifting more towards practical lessons. The emphasis on subjects like ninja tool throwing and combat drills significantly increased. The differences among classmates also became more pronounced. Those with family legacies versus those without, and those who trained diligently versus those who slacked off. This was why Kakashi could enroll at 5 and graduate at 6, while some had to attend for a full 6 years to graduate. After school, a few companions who had agreed to spar headed to the small forest. Upon arriving, it was Obito who first backed down. His bravado from the morning was replaced by hesitation. But he couldn't resist everyone's encouragement, so in the end, Obito still fought Kakashi. Obito started with a great fireball, which was noticeably more powerful than last time, but Kakashi remained unfazed. Without even using a ninjutsu, he quickly ran to the side, avoiding the blast radius of the great fireball, then rapidly charged in for a close quarters engagement with Obito. Obito, already slightly paused from casting his ninjutsu, became even more flustered when Kakashi got close. In just a few moves, Kakashi seized an opportunity and took him down. On the other side, Taichi and Guy also began to fight. Initially, Taichi wanted to duel Guy with swordsmanship, but after only 2 moves, Taichi had to abandon his sword and switch to fists. After all, his swordsmanship was only at a rookie level, having learned it for just 1 day, and wielding the sword actually hindered his performance. Indeed, after discarding his sword, Taichi quickly turned the tide and narrowly defeated Might Guy with a final hook. After the battle, Taichi picked up the sword he had discarded, saying with a touch of self-deprecating humor, if I want to fight with a sword, I still need a lot more practice. His companions also let out good-natured laughter. Life as a student was carefree. Everyone lived their lives in an orderly fashion, and time flowed forward like water through those ordinary days. In the blink of an eye, July arrived, and with the release of exam results, summer vacation followed. Of course, this brought joy to some and sorrow to others. Taichi's grades were excellent, tying for first place in the class with Kakashi. Behind them were Asuma and Hyuga Yujiro. As children of prominent families, they not only possessed outstanding talent but also put in a lot of effort in private. Don't be fooled by their appearances in class, some sleeping, some daydreaming, because at home, they likely had one-on-one private tutors. Of course, this did not include our friend Obito. He didn't even reach a mid-tier level. His pitiful theoretical scores once again defied everyone's expectations, barely scoring over 20 points. And during the exam, Rin Nohara had tried her best to create opportunities for Obito. But alas, Obito was so unmotivated that he couldn't even cheat properly. What could you do with him? After receiving their exam results, everyone gradually left the school. Parents picking up their children could be seen everywhere at the school gate. Some chatted and laughed, clearly proud of their children's good grades, while others wore cold expressions. You could feel a low-pressure aura just by walking past them. These were the ones whose children had performed poorly and, out of concern for their reputation, hadn't erupted in anger at the school gate. They would likely face a scolding once they got home. Taichi looked at the diverse crowd with a pang of envy. After all, they all had family members to pick them up. Unlike himself. Just as Taichi was about to head home, he froze. He saw Nanoyu and Tsunade smiling at him from the crowd. At that moment, Taichi felt his heart fill with happiness and sweetness. He rushed over, grabbed Nanoyu's hand, and asked, Sister Nanoyu, Sister Tsunade, why are you here? Knowing you're on holiday today, we specially came to pick you up to gather with everyone at the orphanage, Nanoyu replied with a smile. Taichi then turned to Tsunade. I'm here to give you this. Now that it's vacation, you can go and report for duty, she said, taking out the internship certificate signed by the Hokage from her arms, waving it, and handing it to Taichi. Taichi took the certificate and looked at it closely, realizing it was an internship certificate, and one that paid a salary at that. It was far more significant than the simple letter of introduction to help out at the hospital he had initially imagined. Seeing the Hokage's signature on the certificate further showed how much effort Tsunade had put into securing this internship. Without hesitation, he bowed respectfully to Tsunade. Thank you so much, Sister Tsunade. Haha, it's nothing at all. Then, Sister Tsunade, why don't you come to the orphanage with us for a visit? You can see how the orphanage is developing now, you also played a part in it. Taichi said, exchanging a glance with Nanoyu. Alright, then let's go and take a look together. The three chatted all the way to the orphanage. By then, the setting sun had painted the orphanage's brick walls a warm orange. When Nanoyu pushed open the iron gate, a group of children rushed out, whooping and hollering. They were all wearing brand new cotton clothes, their faces rosy, clinging to Nanoyu's legs like a string of small lanterns. They showed no signs of being children from an orphanage. Brother Taichi. A little girl with pigtails wiped her snot on Taichi's pant leg. Did you bring us something delicious today? Brother Taichi will personally cook something delicious for you today, how about that? Taichi pinched the little girl's cheek. Yes, yes, yes. We love Brother Taichi the most. Hearing that Taichi was going to cook himself, the children were overjoyed. Tsunade bent down and poked the little girl's cheek. 3 months ago, when she had visited the orphanage, these children were still wearing patched-up old clothes. Now, even the smallest girl had a pink bow. Newly planted orange trees were sprouting tender buds in the courtyard, the swing set had sturdy hemp ropes, and even the yard had been extended. Taichi put down the bamboo basket full of ingredients, which he had bought on impulse from a shop earlier. The children clumsily tied an apron around him. Tsunade leaned against the doorframe, watching him chop vegetables, the knife blade drumming a rhythm on the cutting board. 3 children squatted by the stove, drooling, and the smallest one reached out to sneak a bite, only to have Taichi gently tap his head with a wooden spoon. Dinner's ready. 8 long tables were arranged into a horseshoe-shaped grand table, and everyone gathered around to sit. Tomato soup bubbled in the iron pot. Golden fried tempura was piled high like a small mountain. The children tapped their bowls with wooden spoons, clinking like they were playing music. Suddenly, a chipped ceramic bowl appeared in front of Tsunade, and a small boy with glasses transferred the chicken leg from his own bowl to hers. This is the last one, the child said, pushing his round-rimmed glasses, which had slid down his nose. Brother Taichi said guests should eat the best. The oil lamp cast shadows on the mud walls. 20-odd small hands clasped together simultaneously. Let's eat. Tsunade bit into the crispy batter of a fried shrimp, and the savory taste of seaweed flakes burst on her tongue. 3 months ago, they lived on thin gruel, but now even the miso soup had tender tofu floating in it. Lady Tsunade, try a plum rice ball. Twin sisters squeezed over, stuffing rabbit-shaped rice balls into her hand. The glutinous rice was still warm, and the sourness of the plum made her eyes squint. Nanoyu was wiping the mouth of the youngest child, rice grains sticking to her dark blue apron like scattered stars. After dinner, the children gathered around Tsunade, listening to ninja stories. Taichi sat cross-legged on the porch, peeling an apple, the peel forming a long spiral. Tsunade looked at Taichi, who was smiling at the children, and suddenly remembered a scene from A Mission Return. Nawaki breaking the last half of a sugar cookie for a stray cat, his eyes curving into crescent moons with a smile. It's time to go, Taichi said, looking back at the clock on the wall. It was getting late. Outside the gate, Tsunade looked back and saw a small head bobbing at a second-story window. The boy with glasses breathed on the glass and drew a crooked heart. On the way back, Taichi hummed an off-key children's song. Tsunade felt a grain of rice stuck to her cuff and suddenly laughed. The medical department's report stated, annual budget increased by 47%, but none of that felt as real as that bowl of miso soup with tooth marks. Perhaps this was the Konoha village that her great-grandfather truly wanted to see. The evening breeze carried the scent of fireworks over the rooftops. She stroked the boy's fluffy hair, finally beginning to understand why her teacher always loved to peek into the crystal ball. Peeking into the women's bathhouse, of course, excluded. Taichi, remember to report to Director Bawako at the hospital tomorrow. I'll be leaving now. Okay, Sister Tsunade. Watching Tsunade's figure disappear into the distance, Taichi also headed towards his exclusive training ground, the riverside. With 2 months of vacation, and according to the internship certificate, he would need to report to Konoha Hospital every morning. This meant he would have more time for self-training in the afternoons and evenings, far more than during his school days. He believed his strength would advance further in the coming days. Thinking this, Taichi drew the short sword from his back, calmed his mind, and slowly performed a set of Hataki-style swordsmanship. After some time of practice, Taichi's swordsmanship had made significant progress. His swordsmanship level had now reached LV3, all thanks to his practice during this period. As the short sword was swung repeatedly, prompts continuously appeared on his panel. You practiced Hataki swordsmanship, related comprehension increased. Your skill Hataki swordsmanship has improved, experience +1. You focused on practicing Hataki swordsmanship, ninja apprentice profession experience +1. Congratulations, your ninja apprentice profession level has increased to LV7, 0.1200. Attribute point +1, skill point +1. Seeing that he had gained another attribute point and skill point, Taichi felt his strength increase by another fraction, and his sense of security grew. Konoha root base. Shadows flickered in the dim candlelight of the root base. Danzo's fingers caressed an intelligence scroll, the paper reflecting the swirling malevolence in his single eye. Full marks in all theoretical subjects, taijutsu surpassing a genin. His hoarse voice slithered like a venomous snake over moss. Even Hitaki's swordsmanship is learned so quickly. The root ninja kneeling in the shadows heard Danzo's soliloquy. The scroll was suddenly slapped onto the thick wooden table with a dull thud. He has even mastered 2 chakra nature transformations. Danzo's lips twitched. Such raw jade, how can it be left to Hiruzen's lukewarm polishing? The greenish candlelight suddenly flickered. His gaze swept over the cold, gleaming instruments on the operating table on one side of the room, where countless tools had once lain, marked with cursed seals. Prepare the tongue-tied curse seal before dawn tomorrow. A chilling smile oozed from his lips. This old man will personally make that child understand that darkness is the best breeding ground for genius. At this moment, Danzo finally made up his mind to claim this tool. Konoha Hospital. Tai, having finished his training, tidied himself up early and arrived at the hospital. Watching the people coming and going through the hospital entrance, Tai couldn't help but sigh. No matter where, a hospital's business would never be lacking. Stepping through the hospital doors, Tai stopped a young nurse and asked, "Nurse Gigi, do you know where I can find the director?" "Little brother, your words are so sweet. Tell Gigi, what do you need the director for?" Tai didn't mince words. He took out the internship certificate Tsunade had given him and handed it to the young nurse. The young nurse took the certificate with suspicion, glanced at it twice, and then looked at Tai in surprise. "This says it's you." "Yes, it's me, no doubt about it." The young nurse looked at the internship certificate again, confirmed it was correct, and then pointed Tai in the right direction. "You go up the stairs over there to the top floor, then turn left, and the first room is the director's office. Director Bawako should be in her office right now. Thank you, Gigi. Well, see you next time." Tai politely said goodbye. Arriving at the director's office door, Tai politely knocked. With a, "Come in," Tai pushed the door open. He closed the door behind him. The first thing that caught his eye was a desk covered with documents, followed by the middle-aged beautiful woman sitting behind it, reviewing files. "Hello, Director. I'm Matsushita Tai. Sister Tsunade introduced me here for an internship. This is my internship certificate," he said, handing over the certificate. Bawako had just finished reviewing a document. Hearing him, she looked up at Tai, took the certificate, glanced at it twice, and then said gently, "Ah, Tai. Tsunade has already told me about you. She praised you endlessly. I rarely see her praise anyone so much. It's all because Sister Tsunade taught me well. Tai couldn't undermine Tsunade at this moment. Hee hee. Bawako seemed to think of something and chuckled softly. Alright, since Tsunade introduced you, and the hospital happens to be short-staffed, you can stay. Come to the hospital for your internship every morning. Bawako didn't beat around the bush. Come with me. I'll show you around the hospital first and then take you to the department where you'll be interning. Director Bawako led Tai through a corridor that smelled of disinfectant. Sunlight slanted in from the frosted glass windows, casting long streaks of light on the gray-white floor tiles. As they passed the infusion room, several bandaged children peeked out from the crack in the door, curiously staring at the short sword on Tai's back. The sign for the trauma treatment department had 3 scratches on it. When they pushed the door open, the hinges let out a creaking sound from lack of oil. A female ninja, who was organizing rolls of bandages, turned around, her neat short hair visible beneath her forehead protector. Bawako patted Tai's shoulder. Director Fujita, this is the child Tsunade recommended. Fujita-sana adjusted her round-rimmed glasses, her gaze sweeping over Tai's height, which didn't even reach her chest. Excellent scores in healing jutsu assessment. She suddenly grabbed the medical record folder from the table and flung it at Tai, the pages fanning out in the air. Tai instinctively raised his hand to catch the page closest to his face, the others fluttered down around his feet. Reaction speed, satisfactory. Fujita picked up the scattered medical records. But on the battlefield, you won't have time to slowly organize. She kicked aside a gurney blocking the way, its metal wheels scraping harshly on the tiles. The trauma department handles over 60 emergency casualties every day. Your task today is to assist Haruno. A nurse named Haruno was sterilizing surgical instruments. She brushed away the stray hairs stuck to her neck with sweat and gestured for Tai to observe the tweezers soaking in the medicinal solution. Soak in 75% alcohol for 15 minutes, it's much faster than boiling sterilization. As she spoke, the rolling sound of a stretcher echoed from the corridor. Haruno grabbed a tray and rushed out, not forgetting to remind him, wear a mask. The first casualty was a genin whose palm had been cut by a kunai. Haruno's movements in cleaning the wound were like disassembling an explosive tag, the tweezers holding a cotton ball wiping over the everted flesh. Tai noticed rust deep within the wound and was about to speak when Haruno had already unscrewed a bottle of hydrogen peroxide. Hold his arm down. Amidst the sizzling sound of the medicine contacting the wound, the genin's screams made the instrument tray tremble. Haruno took the opportunity to probe the wound with tweezers and extract debris. She turned to find Tai already standing by with a suturing needle and thread. Blood-stained cotton balls were constantly thrown into the trash can. When Haruno cut the suture, Tai promptly handed over gauze soaked in anti-inflammatory medicine. Have you studied battlefield first aid? Haruno raised an eyebrow as she tied the bandage. Tai was wiping bloodstains from the instrument table. Hearing her, he pointed to the human acupuncture chart on the wall. Sister Nono taught me pressure points for hemostasis. The morning sun began to get hot, and new casualties arrived with fresh burns. When Director Fujita opened the window for air, she saw Tai crouching in the corner of the treatment room. The boy was wrapping a crying child in a green light formed by chakra, the blistered knee visibly scabbed over in the green light. Healing jutsu isn't for you to treat scrapes. Fujita appeared behind Tai, arms crossed. A ninja's chakra is limited and should be used where it's more needed. A scrape like this only requires disinfection. Understood, Director. Tai replied verbally, but his healing jutsu continued without pause. Seeing this, Fujita didn't get angry but placed 2 boxes of new medical gloves at his feet. The cicadas outside the window suddenly became shrill. The sound of gurney wheels rolled from far to near, and Haruno's shouts mixed with the groans of the injured flooded the room. Open fracture. Prepare splints. As Tai rushed out, he saw the ninja transporting the injured covered in his comrade's blood. The broken tibia pierced through the combat pants, and Haruno was trying to straighten the twisted lower leg. Tai's hand moved faster than his thoughts, pressing on the bleeding groin of the injured person, and the green light emanating from his palm turned the gushing blood into seeping droplets. Blood pressure. Director Fujita's voice was like a taut steel wire. Tai maintained his chakra output until Haruno had splinted the fracture. As the injured person was pushed towards the operating room, Haruno tore off her blood-stained rubber gloves and noticed that the hem of Taiyi's white coat was still dripping blood, but the boy was staring blankly at his trembling right hand. Continuous chakra output had caused his fingertips to twitch slightly. When lunch boxes were delivered from the cafeteria, Taiyi was practicing knots in the break room. Haruno snapped apart disposable chopsticks and poked him. Surgical knots are different from ninja knots, you need to leave room for swelling. Her demonstrated square knot formed a small mound on the gauze, and Taiyi's third attempt already looked decent. Director Fujita returned from the X-ray room, chewing on a rice ball, and noticed Taiyi's anatomical drawing in a medical record book. The boy's charcoal pencil was outlining the cross-section of a laceration caused by a kunai, and the marked blood vessel positions were so precise that they reminded her of a certain blonde woman. When Taiyi handed over the organized list of sterilized instruments, she finally pointed to the storage cabinet and said, "Starting tomorrow, you'll be responsible for replenishing consumables." The bell for the end of lunch break rang, and Taiyi's white coat pocket was already filled with fruit candies given by the nurses. When Haruno pinned a new name tag to his chest, she found the boy asleep leaning against the wall, still clutching a broken hemostat, which he had secretly picked up from the scrap bin that morning to study. The cicadas outside the window were still chirping loudly, but no one woke the child whose eyelashes were still stained with dried blood. Taiyi's first morning of internship passed in this busy routine. The hospital internship was much harder than he imagined, but the rewards were also much higher than expected. Just this one morning of internship, Taiyi received constant notifications from his panel. You performed medical practical operations, relevant comprehension increased. You performed healing jutsu, relevant comprehension increased. Your skill healing jutsu has improved, experience +1. You performed mystical palm technique, relevant comprehension increased. Your skill mystical palm technique has improved, experience +1. You focused on medical practice, ninja apprentice profession experience +1. In just one morning, he not only pushed his already proficient healing jutsu to LV7 but also directly brought the mystical palm technique, which he had just learned, to LV2. In the afternoon, Taiyi dragged his exhausted body back home. The morning's internship had consumed too much of his chakra. Now, he thought that Director Fujita's words were correct. A ninja's chakra was indeed too little and should be used in more necessary places. However, Taiyi never regretted treating that child in the morning, it just meant he would be more mindful of his actions in the future. Hokage's office. The door was suddenly pushed open, and Danzo's wide sleeves stirred up a gust of cold wind. Hiruzen Sarutobi put down his pipe, and the blue smoke wove a spiderweb between the two. Give me that orphan. Danzo's fingers on his cane were white. A flower grown in a greenhouse can't withstand the wind and rain. Hiruzen unhurriedly organized the internship certificate under the crystal ball. This was the internship certificate and report that Bawako had just delivered, Tsunade's elegant signature blurring with ink on the parchment. Director Bawako praised the child's seasoned suturing skills this morning. He blew away the ash from his pipe. The medical team is in need of such talent. The cane struck the ground heavily, making the vermilion ink in the inkstone ripple. Your so-called cultivation is letting him bandage wounds. Danzo's single eye flashed with a cold light. The root training camp can temper his blade with real blood. What he needs now is to build deeper bonds with everyone, not to immediately have his blade taste blood. Besides, this morning he just saved 3 Anbu members with burn injuries using healing jutsu. Hiruzen stood up, the flame pattern on his Hokage cloak rising and falling with his movement. Do you know how that child trains? He uses chakra to set the bones of stray cats every day. The scent of disinfectant drifted in from outside the window, and the rolling sound of the emergency team's gurney downstairs crushed the silence. Danzo suddenly grabbed the Ninja Academy report from the table, Taiyi and Kakashi's sword fighting practice photo cracking under his grip. This kind of terrifyingly disciplined brat will be the second Orochimaru in 20 years. So what he needs is no-nose ginger soup, not your cursed seal. Hiruzen's knuckles on the edge of the table bulged with veins. Back then, Nawaki. The teacup swept off by the cane shattered into fragments in the corner, and the dark pattern on Danzo's sleeve flashed with the faint glow of chakra. Womanly compassion. When an enemy's blade is at his throat, you will regret not letting me prune those weak branches. Danzo, I am the Hokage. Hiruzen's suddenly raised voice rattled the window panes, and the crystal ball showed a scene from the hospital corridor. Tai was crouching, offering candy to a crying child, the short sword on his back wrapped in cotton cloth to prevent accidental injury. Danzo fell silent for a long time, as if suppressing the anger in his heart. It was unclear whether he was angry at Hiruzen Sarutobi's indecisiveness or at his own hesitation back then. Finally, Danzo sneered, and as he turned, his sleeve knocked over the bonsai Tsunade had given him. The purple clay pot rolled across the red carpet, leaving a damp trail, the roots of the half-withered pine seedling covered in mud. The slamming door sent documents flying across the desk, and the medical department's stamped internship application fluttered down, finally covering the smiling face of the child in the crystal ball, who had stopped crying. Konoha Root Anbu Base. Back at the base, Danzo still couldn't suppress the anger in his heart. He wasn't angry that he failed to recruit Taichi Matsushita as a tool, since Konoha was never short of geniuses. Besides, the talent Taichi had displayed so far was only on par with Kakashi's. Danzo's root had plenty of clan ninjas and secret technique ninjas, so they didn't really lack Taichi Matsushita. Moreover, a genius who hadn't grown up yet was nothing. What truly infuriated Danzo was Hiruzen's last remark, "I am the Hokage." He recalled that when they evacuated and Tobarama-sensei asked who would stay behind, Danzo hesitated for just a moment and Hiruzen Sarutobi seized the opportunity. Otherwise, he, Shimura Danzo, would be the Hokage now. The more Danzo thought about it, the angrier he became, leading to another fit of smashing things before he finally calmed down. Thinking about Hiruzen Sarutobi rejecting his request, he felt another wave of indignation. In the end, he decided to personally meet Taichi Matsushita. If Taichi himself was willing to join the route, then Hiruzen Sarutobi couldn't refuse, could he? At this moment, Taichi had no idea that the two great figures of Konoha had erupted into an argument because of him. Back home, after a short rest, Taichi picked up his short sword again, preparing to head to the training grounds. Along the way, perhaps because of the Ninja Academy holiday, Taichi noticed that the streets were much livelier than usual. From time to time, groups of 2 or 3 children brushed past him, leaving behind bursts of joyous laughter. At this moment, people probably couldn't imagine that the next war would descend again in the near future, and everyone was still enjoying this brief moment of peace. No, the higher-ups of Konoha definitely knew. The higher-ups of all villages definitely knew. Now, it was just a pack of wolves licking their wounds. Once everyone had accumulated enough strength, the next war would break out. The summer was exceptionally muggy. After leaving the bustling streets, the sound of cicadas, mixed with humidity, clung to his skin. As Taichi walked along the tree shadows towards the riverside training ground, he heard the crisp clang of metal from a distance. He instinctively gripped his sword hilt, chakra flowing along his meridians to his tiptoes. Kakashi had just taught him last week how to approach a target silently. In the clearing behind the bushes, 3 Anbu were ambushing a man wearing a hidden mist forehead protector. The masked ninja suddenly threw 3 kunai with explosive tags attached. From the dust stirred up by the explosion, 5 water clones emerged. Taichi recognized this as the hidden mist style substitution jutsu. He was about to retreat when he caught a glimpse of a hidden stone tattoo flashing on the man's sleeve. A fake hidden mist ninja. Northwest. The Anbu leader suddenly shouted towards Taichi's hiding spot. Taichi rolled to dodge the incoming wind blade, grass blades grazing his cheek. The spy, disguised as a hidden mist ninja, used the recoil to leap onto a tree trunk, closing in on Taichi's position with a few jumps. The boy could clearly see the cold sweat beneath the opponent's forehead protector, and the chakra threads wrapped around his fingers. It was the hidden sand puppet manipulation technique. Fireball. Taichi's fingers were still trembling as he formed the hand signs, the fireball barely grazing the enemy's clothes. Poisoned Senbon shot out from the spy's sleeve. Taichi swiftly drew his sword, splitting them apart with a powerful strike at the last moment. The vibration of metal clashing climbed up his shoulder blade through the sword hilt, and he almost lost his grip on the short sword. Hitaki sword style experience +1. As the panel notification flashed across his retina, the spy's whip kick had already swept towards his face. Taichi leaned back, remembering Guy's leaf hurricane, and spun around to kick the opponent's knee. Compared to sword techniques, Tai Chi's taijutsu was still stronger at this stage. The crisp sound of bones dislocating made his stomach churn. This was a dislocated knee joint he had just seen at the hospital this morning. But this time, he had caused it himself. After using several ninjutsu, his chakra, which had been severely depleted that morning, was now almost at rock bottom. Tai Chi didn't hesitate, quickly adding a point to his physique attribute. Instantly, his depleted stamina, mental energy, and even chakra were fully restored. This gave Tai Chi more confidence. You brat, you're asking for death. The wind release jutsu spewed by the spy was mixed with gravel. Tai Chi's hand signs suddenly changed to the medical jutsu taught by No. Green light enveloped his left arm, taking the full force of the blow. As the fabric ripped, blood droplets splattered onto his eyelashes. He used the clarity brought by the pain to throw a smoke bomb, a tactic Asuma had used in his last battle. As the gray mist spread, Tai Chi held his breath, Kakashi's teaching echoing in his ears, listened to the wind to discern location. The feeling of the blade piercing flesh came, but he was thrown back 3 steps by the recoil. He had hit an earth clone. The real shuriken came from behind. Tai Chi barely managed to turn sideways, the blade carving a bloody gash on his shoulder. Phoenix flower. He endured the pain, formed hand signs, and spewed a fireball, blocking the enemy's retreat. The scorching airflow blew away the spy's disguise mask. That scarred face reminded Tai Chi of the injured patients he treated at the hospital, and his hand forming the signs paused for a moment. In that instant of weakness, chains shot from the hidden sand ninja's sleeve, wrapping around his ankle. The metallic scraping suddenly ceased. 3 kunai precisely severed the chakra threads. The Anbu captain appeared behind the spy in a flash. Tai Chi could almost see the corner of his mouth curving under his mask. As the katana pierced the enemy's shoulder, Tai Chi pressed on his profusely bleeding wound, the green light in his palm much dimmer than usual. Medical team. The captain's shout startled the tired birds in the forest. Tai Chi slid to the ground, leaning against a tree trunk, watching the Anbu put chakra-sealing shackles on the unconscious spy. The morning light shone on the blood-stained sword guard, and he found himself smiling. It turned out that true combat smelled of disinfectant mixed with rust. Kid, your swordsmanship is decent, your taijutsu is good, but you always get distracted in battle. As the captain threw him a hemostatic bandage, Tai Chi noticed the faded flame pattern on the edge of his forehead protector. The Anbu's gloves were stained with both his and the enemy's blood, but the pad on his shoulder was surprisingly warm. What's your name? Tai Chi Matsushita. Then the Anbu captain questioned Tai Chi, mainly asking why he was there and what he was doing. Upon learning that Tai Chi was still a student at the Ninja Academy, he also showed surprise, wondering if students nowadays were also fierce. After the interrogation, Tai Chi looked at the unconscious spy on the stretcher and suddenly remembered the child he had soothed with his healing jutsu in the hospital. The morning breeze swept across his sweaty back, and his hand gripping the sword finally stopped trembling. Panel notifications quietly flickered in the corner of his vision, the entries slowly increasing. You have engaged in combat with an enemy, relevant experience has increased. Your skill basic taijutsu has improved, experience +1. Your skill Hataki sword style has improved, experience +1. Your skill fire style, Phoenix flower has improved, experience +1. You have engaged in combat with a ninja, combat experience has increased, Ninja Academy student profession experience +50. A short battle caused all his stats to surge significantly, the effect being better than a full day of training. Indeed, only real combat could faster promote the growth of strength. Unfortunately, such opportunities were rare. Tai Chi, having moved away from the Anbu members to the small river, did not continue training. After all, he had just experienced a major battle, and both his body and mind were greatly exhausted. Although his injuries were healed on the spot with medical ninjutsu, intense exercise was not advisable for a short period. Recalling the recent battle, Tai Chi realized he had made many mistakes, getting distracted during combat, mistiming his ninjutsu releases. Fortunately, the Anbu arrived in time to intervene in this battle, otherwise, he might have been the one lying down. It seemed there was still a significant gap between himself and a true ninja, not just in strength, but more so in experience facing enemies in critical situations. After his summary, Tai Chi looked at his panel. His basic taijutsu and basic meditation were about to level up. If he had leveled up earlier during the battle, he might not have had to spend an attribute point. While he thought this, Taichi had no regrets. In a life or death situation, there weren't so many considerations. Then, Taichi slowly began practicing the cultivation method in basic taijutsu and the meditation in basic meditation, first to recover his body, and second to quickly level up both skills. Sure enough, a notification came shortly after. Congratulations, your skill basic taijutsu has been raised to LV9, 01600. Congratulations, your skill basic meditation has been raised to LV9, 01600. With the two insights that came with leveling up, Taichi finally confirmed that his taijutsu level had reached that of a chunin. The next step was to digest these insights through continuous combat. Meanwhile, the Anbu captain, after handing the spy over to the interrogation department, went to the Hokage's office to report the situation. You're saying you encountered a ninja academy student during the battle, and that student helped prevent the spy's escape? The Hokage inquired. Yes, Hokage-sama. It was a first-year student named Taichi Matsushita. I've verified his identity, there are no issues. Alright, I understand. You may go and rest now. Yes. After the Anbu left, Hiruzen Sarutobi picked up the pipe on his desk, filled it with tobacco, lit it, took a deep puff, and then exhaled contentedly, immediately becoming enveloped in smoke. He remembered Danzo coming to him that morning, demanding the student and questioning whether his training methods would stifle talent. In the afternoon, the Anbu reported Taichi's excellent performance in battle. Hiruzen Sarutobi couldn't help but wonder if this Taichi Matsushita was his lucky star, as good things seemed to happen every time he heard his name. Life returned to normal. Although Taichi longed to fight against a ninja again, there were no such opportunities for him in the current Konoha. Taichi's life also returned to the routine he had planned, interning at Konoha Hospital in the morning, practicing swordsmanship and ninjutsu in the afternoon, and training basic taijutsu and basic meditation at home in the evening. His days were generally packed like this, and sometimes he would run into Guy, Rin, or Obito on the road. They would often agree to train together, and during these sessions, they'd ask about other classmates' recent activities. From Obito, Taichi learned that their families had been keeping them at home for special training. They said they were motivated by Taichi's success. It was bad enough to lose to the Uchiha and Hyuga, but now they couldn't even compare to a civilian ninja. Taichi could only chuckle after hearing this. It was good to be from a prominent clan. Even if their grades weren't good, the family would provide extra tutoring. In just 1 month, Taichi himself had made tremendous progress. If he were to encounter the same spy again now, Taichi was confident that, while he couldn't guarantee a solo victory, he could certainly hold his own against the spy without getting injured. That was no problem at all. Just look at his current stats. Name: Taichi Matsushita. Profession: Ninja Apprentice LV8, 123 1200. Talents: Diligence can compensate for lack of talent, academic overachiever. Age: 6 years old. Constitution: 14. Strength: 16. Agility: 13. Spirit: 20. Chakra: 4000 5500. Attribute points: 10. Skill points: 11. Fire Release Nature Transformation LV2, 156 200. Wind Release Nature Transformation LV2, 110 200. Yang Release Nature Transformation LV3, 53 400. Skills: Basic Taijutsu LV9, 11 14 1600. Basic Meditation LV9, 10 23 1600. Chakra Control LV9, 10 75 1600. Ninja Tool Throwing LV8, 123 1400. 3 Body Technique LV8, 162 1400. Fire Release. Flame Bullet LV7, 263 1200. Fire Release. Phoenix Fire LV8, 243 1400. Wind Release. Great Breakthrough LV7, 120 1200. Healing Jutsu LV9, 463 1600. Hitaki Swordsmanship LV5, 243 800. Mystical Palm Technique LV5, 258 800. Delicate Illness Extraction Technique LV3, 142 400. Evaluation: You have escaped the fate of cannon fodder, but be warned, on the battlefield you are still just a tiny bug. His professional level had increased by 1, and everything else progressed as expected, with medical ninjutsu showing the most significant improvement. Given Taichi's current medical ninjutsu level, if his age were disregarded, people would believe him to be a medical chunin. This was also why Taichi was doing so well at Konoha Hospital. Not only was he sweet-talked and young, but he could also be of great help to everyone in their work, which made him liked by all normal people. Just today, while Taichi was restocking medical supplies in the morning, a nurse called him over, saying a child with an external injury had been brought in by a companion. The other doctors were busy and couldn't spare any time, so Taichi had to step in. The smell of disinfectant permeated the corridor. As Taichi hurried to the treatment room with the nurse, the hem of his white coat fluttered in the draft. The moment he pushed open the door, he saw Kakashi's silver hair glint in the sunlight, and Obito's distinctive goggles were still flecked with grass. Why are you guys here? Taichi's gaze fell on Rin's rolled-up pant leg, 3 claw marks snaked from her knee to her ankle, blood beads seeping from the torn skin. Obito squatted in the corner, clutching his hair, his goggles askew around his neck. It's all my fault for insisting on chasing that squirrel. Kakashi suddenly reached out and pressed down on Obito's head, his voice muffled beneath his mask. It's my fault, I didn't notice the movement in the bushes. Rin forced a smile onto her pale face and reached for the gauze on the table. It just looks scary, actually, hiss. Her sharp intake of breath made both boys freeze simultaneously. Don't move, either of you. Taichi pulled a pair of rubber gloves from the cart. The clinking of metal instruments made the trio instinctively straighten their backs. As he knelt to examine the wound, Obito noticed the reflection of the intern badge on Taichi's chest. You're working at the hospital. Obito's gasp almost knocked over the alcohol bottle. Kakashi's gaze swept over Taichi's skilled fingers as he cut the gauze, then suddenly spoke, there's gravel in the wound. Sunlight filtered through the frosted glass, casting dappled light onto the treatment bed. Taichi pinched a cotton ball with tweezers. Rin, this might hurt a little. The moment the alcohol touched the wound, Rin gripped the bedsheet, and Obito immediately offered his arm. Bite me if you need to. Idiot, that will hinder the treatment. Kakashi pressed down on Obito's shoulder, his gaze fixed on Taichi's hands. The iodine-soaked cotton ball drew concentric circles around the wound, the young doctor's wrist as steady as if he were forming hand signs. Is it a wildcat-type ninja beast? Taichi rotated Rin's calf. The 3 claw marks glowed an unnatural bluish-purple in the sunlight. Kakashi nodded. Are its claws poisoned? Just normal inflammation. Taichi pulled a light green ointment from the bottom of the cart. Sister Nono taught me how to identify 200 types of animal venom. The cool touch of the ointment on her skin made Rin relax, and Obito's nose was almost touching Taichi's hands as he worked. Your technique is even more professional than the medical corps. The cart's wheels suddenly screeched, and Director Fujita appeared at the doorway, clutching a medical record book. Taichi, bed number 3 needs. Her voice trailed off as her gaze swept over the 3 children in Ninja Academy uniforms. Come get new sutures after you're done here. The moment the door closed, Obito jumped up. Was that the head of the trauma department? My uncle said she made Chunin cry. Kakashi's pupils widened slightly. The approval of the medical squad leader held far more weight than exam scores. Starting treatment. Taichi's hands glowed with a vibrant green chakra, and the blood beads seeping from Rin's wound suddenly floated in the air. Obito watched with wide eyes as the torn flesh smoothed as if by an invisible hand, and Kakashi instinctively clenched his fists. As the chakra's glow faded, Rin tentatively flexed her knee. It doesn't hurt at all. The moment she jumped off the bed, tears finally welled up in Obito's red eyes. That's great. Change the dressing twice a day. Taichi tore open a sterile dressing. No strenuous activity for 3 days. As he lowered his head to write the medical instructions, Kakashi suddenly spoke. When did you learn the mystical palm technique? Not long after the holidays, I guess. Taichi pulled fruit candy from his white coat pocket and shared it with everyone. An Anbu uncle was burned by an explosive tag, and Director Fujita asked me to try reattaching his nerves. Obito's hand, clutching the candy wrapper, trembled, and Rin noticed the faint burn scar on Taichi's right index finger. The lunch break bell rang from outside the window, and the scent of rice balls mingled with the disinfectant. Taichi asked, while tidying up the instruments, "Want to try the hospital cafeteria's miso soup?" Obito was about to nod when his stomach let out a loud rumble. As the four squeezed onto the bench in the staff lounge, the sunlight shone directly on Taichi's intern badge. Kakashi stared at the pickled plum in his bento box. The medical corps allows students to intern. Lady Tsunade recommended me. Taichi broke apart a pair of disposable chopsticks. The Hokage personally approved it. Obito choked on a rice ball, and Rin quickly handed him some barley tea. Through the steam on the glass cup, Taichi recounted his experiences going on emergency calls with the ambulance crew at 4 in the morning. Last week, an old woman had an asthma attack, and I ran 7 streets carrying an oxygen tank. Taichi pointed to his bruised knees. It was more tiring than taijutsu training. Rin suddenly reached out and poked his arm. There's still some iodine not wiped clean here. Kakashi silently passed a fried shrimp from his bento to Taichi. This was how he had learned to express gratitude from his father's bento. Obito rummaged through all his pockets and finally pulled out his prized ninja card. This is for you. It's a rare first Hokage card. As the afternoon cicadas chirped through the screen window, Director Fujita's footsteps echoed in the corridor. The 3 children hurriedly packed their lunchboxes, and Rin stuffed the last piece of pickled radish into Taichi's mouth. Obito clung to the doorframe and called back, "You absolutely have to come to the special training in the back mountains next week." Sunlight streamed diagonally into the empty treatment room, and Taichi bent down to pick up Obito's fallen goggles. The sterilizer's indicator light turned from red to green, and the instruments in the metal tray gleamed coldly. He suddenly remembered how clumsy he had been the first time he helped Nono with bandaging. The shadow of clouds swept across the hospital's outer wall, and Taichi adjusted his crooked intern badge in the glass window. The wind lifted the hem of his white coat, revealing the short sword tucked behind his waist. Ever since the spy incident revealed the shortcomings of his swordsmanship, Taichi had been finding time and space to practice drawing his sword, even at the hospital, whenever he had a moment. Ever since Taichi Matsushita encountered the 3 of them, Obito, Rin, and Kakashi, at the hospital last time, the news of his internship at Konoha Hospital spread throughout the class. His classmates were all curious about how skilled Taichi was in medical ninjutsu to be able to work directly at the hospital. The rumors grew more and more exaggerated, eventually claiming that Taichi was already a medical ninja of special Jonin level. It was surprising that anyone believed such a thing. These guys had lost even their most basic judgment. As expected, classmates would periodically visit Taichi at the hospital under various pretexts. Some claimed a family member was hospitalized, others were looking for someone, and some even deliberately cut themselves to seek Taichi's treatment. These chaotic incidents eventually alarmed Director Fujita, and only after he caught a few truly audacious brats did things finally quiet down. Taichi was finally able to return to a regular routine. One day, Konoha Hospital was suddenly flooded with a large number of casualties. The scent of disinfectant was overwhelmed by the strong smell of blood, and the corridors of Konoha Hospital were packed with stretchers. Plaster dust mixed with rust-tinged blood foam floated in the air, and the wheels of the gurneys made a sticky sound as they rolled over the floor tiles. The hem of Taichi's white coat was already stained dark red, and the green chakra gathered in his palm flickered on and off over a worker's chest. Left third rib fractured, right lung perforated. Nurse Haruno tore open the injured man's shirt, which was covered in cement fragments. Blood pressure 70/40ths. Taichi's fingertips moved over the bleeding chest cavity, and chakra, transformed into fine threads, probed into the wound. He could feel the broken bone fragments pressing like daggers against the alveoli, and the adhered tissues trembled with faint breaths. 3 months ago, he still had to consult anatomical diagrams to confirm organ positions, but now he instinctively manipulated chakra to envelop the sharp broken bones. The sound of colliding stretchers came from the end of the corridor. A newly arrived casualty had his entire left leg twisted at an impossible angle. Taichi had just finished stopping the lung bleeding and stumbled, leaning on the treatment table as he turned. Several hours of continuous chakra output made his temples throb. Move. Director Fujita burst through the emergency exit, cradling an unconscious little girl. Pulpy white brain tissue continuously oozed from the wound at the back of the child's head, and blood mixed with concrete debris soaked the director's medical forehead protector. Tai Chi grabbed gauze and pressed it against the girl's skull defect. A viscous sensation seeped through his fingers. When he tried to gather chakra, the familiar cool sensation did not appear. His overexhausted body couldn't even perform the most basic hemostasis jutsu. Intravenous injection. Fujita's voice seemed to come from far away. Prepare craniotomy instruments. The sterilization lamp cast a pale halo overhead, and Tai Chi mechanically pressed the gauze. He saw his intern ID badge floating in the pool of blood, the 4 characters, Matsushita Tai Chi, on the metal plate blurred by the bloodstains. The groans echoing in the corridor gradually became ethereal until a familiar voice pierced through the heavy smell of blood. Get out of the way. Tsunade burst through the emergency exit, her dark green robe flapping behind her. When she saw the scene in the treatment room, her pupils suddenly constricted. The young man kneeling in the blood was biting a bandage to stop the bleeding on his right hand, and the medical forehead protector tied to his forehead was unrecognizable in its original color. Memories pierced his temples like kunai. 20 years ago, on a rainy night, Naoki also knelt on the battlefield like this, tying a blood-stained bandage around his abdominal wound. The broken medical forehead protector, pale knuckles, and that phrase, "Sister, save them," that faded into the rain. Let the professional handle it. Tsunade grabbed Tai Chi by the collar, lifting him, but softened her grip when she felt the boy's trembling shoulders. When she saw the little girl's injuries on the treatment table, a familiar burning sensation suddenly rose in her throat, a premonition of her hemophobia acting up. Tai Chi wiped the bloodstains from his face with his sleeve and regathered chakra in his palm. Director said if brain tissue is exposed for more than 20 minutes, then go treat the leg bone puncture wound. Tsunade suddenly interrupted him, her fingertips digging deeply into her palm. The sterilization lamp cast a long shadow, momentarily overlapping with her own self standing before the operating table 20 years ago. Back then, she could calmly cut open her brother's chest, but now she couldn't even look directly at the child's wound. Tai Chi picked up the first aid kit and rushed down the corridor. Moonlight streamed through the broken window frame onto the stretcher bed. His chakra was too weak to perform the mystic palm technique, so he could only manually splint the injured. When a worker bit his wrist in extreme pain, the boy silently stuffed a piece of gauze into the other's mouth. It wasn't that Tai Chi didn't use his attribute points to restore stamina, it was just that Tai Chi, after all, was also selfish, and what he could do for strangers could only go this far. Tsunade leaned against the cold wall, the clanging of instruments echoing in her ears. For the first time in 20 years, she hated her proud sensory abilities. She could clearly hear Tai Chi in the adjacent treatment room, using the most primitive physical methods to stop the bleeding of a patient with a ruptured artery. The boy's hurried breathing intertwined with Naoki's gradually weakening heartbeat in her memory, twisting her sanity tighter and tighter. The darkness before dawn was the most profound. When Tai Chi crashed the treatment cart for the 3rd time due to chakra exhaustion, Tsunade finally grabbed his wrist. The skin under the boy's white coat was scalding hot, but his pulse was as faint as a candle in the wind. Enough. Her voice was hoarse, not like her own. Go to the lounge. But the worker in bed 3. That's an order. Tsunade suddenly raised her voice, but her eyes reddened as Tai Chi stumbled and turned. The moonlight illuminated the medical symbol on the boy's back, that green cross symbolizing healing and saving lives, now stained dark brown with blood. As the morning mist drifted into the corridor, the last critical patient was wheeled into the operating room. Tsunade stood in the shadows of the emergency exit, watching Tai Chi curled up and sleeping on a bench. The boy's right hand, covered in dried blood, hung over the edge of the chair, the medical chakra marks in his palm not yet completely faded. As stubborn as Naoki, she took off her outer robe and covered Tai Chi with it. The dark green Senju clan emblem shimmered in the morning light. The robe she couldn't put on her brother back then had finally found its home. As the first rays of sunlight pierced the morning mist the next day, Tsunade unrolled a brand new scroll in the morning light. The ink on the advanced medical ninjutsu outline was still wet, and it was still damp with dew collected before dawn. Starting today, add 2 hours of training every day. She tucked the scroll into Tai Chi's arms, her fingertips brushing over the boy's scabbed tiger's mouth. I'm going to teach you more than just how to save people. Taichi looked at the scroll in his hand, still a bit dazed. Having slept for over 10 hours, he hadn't fully woken up from his grogginess. Sister Tsunade, is this? From now until school starts, after your internship each day, come to me for 2 hours of study. At your current level, going out there would just embarrass me. Even though she was going to teach Taichi, her words were so Tsunere. Taichi knew Tsunade's personality and didn't mind. If people knew that Tsunade Haim, one of the Sanin, was willing to teach someone, the line of people would circle Konoha. Thank you, Sister Tsunade. I will definitely work hard and not disappoint your teachings. Alright, kid, aren't you going to get ready? Yes. From that day on, Taichi would seek out Tsunade for study every day after his morning internship. Tsunade meticulously taught Taichi medical ninjutsu from scratch, which perfectly compensated for the shortcomings in Taichi's medical foundation. After all, Taichi's medical ninjutsu before this was self-taught, at most asking Nono for advice. Now with Tsunade's systematic guidance, Taichi's theoretical foundation and medical ninjutsu both progressed rapidly. More importantly, even his yang-release nature transformation made huge strides. Taichi even learned his first A-rank ninjutsu, the chakra scalpel, in the following half-month. Currently, Taichi's stats were Healing Jutsu LV 10, 14 2000s, Mystic Palm Technique LV 6, 24 1000s, Delicate Illness Extraction Technique LV 5, 231 800s, Chakra Scalpel LV 3, 84 400s, Yang Release Nature Transformation LV 4, 75 600s. It could be said that Taichi's medical skill level at this point completely surpassed his combat level. This was also something Taichi had not anticipated. Konoha, an izakaya. The Sanin, rarely gathered together, were drinking and chatting in the izakaya. The dim yellow light of the izakaya swayed in the sake, and Tsunade's fingers, clutching the pottery cup, were slightly white. Orochimaru's golden slit pupils flickered in and out of the shadows, like a venomous snake lurking in the dark. I saw it with my own eyes. You know, Jiraiya sloshed his sake flask, ice clinking against the wall of the flask. Last Wednesday, at Training Ground 3, the way you taught that black-haired kid the chakra scalpel. That was medical guidance. Tsunade suddenly raised her voice, making the bartender behind the counter flinch. Ice clattered in the cocktail shaker as she stared at the plum pit settled at the bottom of her cup. That child now, a familiar metallic taste suddenly rose in her throat, and the image of Nawaki covered in blood years ago flashed before her eyes. Orochimaru's sneer was like a snake's tongue brushing past her ear. It takes remarkable courage to let someone with hemophobia be a teacher. His kunai spun into a blur between his fingertips, carving deep marks into the wooden table. Why not hand him over to me? Don't even think about it. Two voices rang out simultaneously. Jiraiya's palm slammed onto the table, overturning the sake flask, and amber liquid dripped down through the table's cracks. Tsunade grabbed a towel to wipe the sake stain from her sleeve, suddenly realizing her hand was trembling. The shouts of a drunkard came from the alley behind the izakaya, and moonlight seeped in through the gaps of the sliding door. Jiraiya ruffled his messy white hair. I'm telling you, if that kid can learn the chakra scalpel, it means his talent. He needs more than just medical ninjutsu now. Tsunade suddenly interrupted him, poking the grilled sauri on her plate with her chopsticks. Yesterday, when he asked me if I had any offensive taijutsu, I realized. The fish bones scraped harshly against the porcelain plate. I can't teach him anything more. Orochimaru's pupils suddenly contracted. He remembered 3 days ago, passing by the Konoha hospital, he saw the black-haired boy practicing swordsmanship on the rooftop. The trajectory of the blade cutting through the morning mist was strikingly similar to a certain silver-haired man. The night wind rustled the door curtain, and the izakaya's lantern suddenly went out. In the darkness, Tsunade's muffled voice came. Hey, Jiraiya, why don't you teach him for a while? You don't have anything else to do right now anyway. Jiraiya's sake cup froze midair, and he was instantly dumbfounded, never expecting that coming for a drink would result in extra trouble. Before Jiraiya could even agree, Tsunade stood up, tossed some coins down, and said, then it's settled. Come on, let's go see him. Jiraiya was still in a daze. The river in the training ground shimmered with the afterglow of the setting sun, and Tai Chi was practicing chakra control on the water's surface. A sudden whoosh from behind made him instinctively flip and leap, and 3 shuriken grazed his hair and embedded themselves in a tree trunk. Reaction: satisfactory. Orochimaru's hoarse voice came from the treetop. When Tai Chi looked up, he saw Tsunade crouching on a river stone, her chakra blade, condensed at her fingertips, cutting through the surging waves. Jiraiya's great fireball also suddenly attacked from the left, and Tai Chi rapidly retreated, stepping on the water. Where the flames swept, the river water steamed into a vast white mist, its power immense. Wind release. Great breakthrough. The boy's clear shout pierced through the water mist, and a whirlwind, carrying a fire dragon, shot straight into the sky. Beautiful dual attribute combination. Jiraiya laughed as he stepped out from behind the tree, his forehead protector glinting in the setting sun. He noticed the way Tai Chi's wrist rotated, identical to the swordsmanship stance he had seen through the binoculars 3 days ago. Tsunade suddenly grabbed Tai Chi by the collar, pressing a chakra blade against his throat. Where should a medical ninja protect most? Her voice carried the scent of sake, but her fingers were as steady as surgical forceps. Chakra pathways, Tai Chi answered without hesitation, and the green light that lit up at his fingertips suddenly touched Tsunade's elbow crease. The moment their chakras collided, a 3-meter-high splash erupted on the river's surface. Orochimaru's applause startled the birds in the forest, a perfect counterattack, but unfortunately, his long tongue flicked across his lips. Your chakra reserves were 3/10 less. When Tsunade released him, Tai Chi stumbled and sat down in the shallows. The pebbles dug painfully into his palms, and he saw Tsunade's back trembling slightly in the twilight. That was the tremor of hemophobia acting up. From today on, this trouble is yours. Tsunade suddenly pushed Tai Chi towards Jiraiya. The boy bumped into the white-haired man's solid chest, smelling a strong scent of sake mixed with ink. Jiraiya's palm rested on Tai Chi's shoulder, and the warmth permeated through his soaked ninja uniform. Kid, do you know what true ninjutsu is? His other hand suddenly formed a hand seal, and a huge fiery whirlwind scorched the entire river section black. Flames danced in Tai Chi's pupils. Compared to his own fire release, Jiraiya's fire release was several orders of magnitude more powerful. The boy had just opened his mouth when he was interrupted by Orochimaru's cold voice. Which stage of the chakra scalpel have you practiced to? The air by the river suddenly solidified. Jiraiya felt the shoulder under his palm instantly tense, an instinctive reaction of an animal encountering a predator. He was about to speak, but then he saw a solid and dazzling blade of light ignite at Tai Chi's fingertips. The 3rd stage, I just learned to cut chakra threads. Tai Chi's voice was breathless. The continuously condensed high-density chakra made sweat beads form on his forehead, but his grip on the blade was as steady as a rock. Orochimaru's golden-slit pupils narrowed into slits in the twilight. He remembered a rainy night when Danzo's route report mentioned suspected mastery of yang-release chakra-shaped transformation. The light blade before him now was even 3 times more formidable than described in the report. Jiraiya suddenly laughed, breaking the stalemate. He magically pulled out a frog wallet from his chest. As a welcoming gift, I'm treating you to ramen tonight. The wallet opened its mouth and spat out 3 discount coupons, perfectly covering Orochimaru's chakra threads that were stealthily reaching towards Tai Chi. Tsunade's back had already vanished deep into the forest. Tai Chi looked in the direction she left, and found finger marks, an inch deep, left on the riverbank stone. Those were made by Tsunade gripping the stone with her bare hands to control her hemophobia. Perhaps she left early to avoid showing her distress. First, let's check your chakra control level. Jiraiya's voice suddenly became serious. He lightly stomped his foot, and chakra spread out in perfect circular ripples on the water's surface. Stand on the river like this, until the moon rises too. Before he could finish, Tai Chi was already standing steadily on the crest of a wave. Moonlight shone on his soaked pant legs, and the glow of his chakra was weaker than before, but much more sustained and enduring. Jiraiya's pupils widened slightly. He saw the swirling ripples beneath the boy's feet, which were exactly the same as his own water-walking effect. Orochimaru's cold laugh floated over the river, an interesting little fellow. His figure, along with a silencing jutsu, turned into blue smoke, the last to dissipate being his cold gaze fixed on Tai Chi's back. After a series of tests, Jiraiya also understood Taichi's level. Overall, it was equivalent to that of a newly promoted Chunin, but considering his age and medical ninjutsu, that level was quite astonishing. Teaching such a genius boy for a while wouldn't be too much trouble. Next, Jiraiya took Taichi to Ichiraku Ramen. This was Taichi's first time here. He used to not have money, and later when he had money, he didn't have time to come. Today, he finally arrived at this famous Konoha attraction. Owner, one large tonkatsu ramen, please. As he spoke, he didn't forget to tell Taichi, order whatever you want, it's my treat today. Owner, the same for me. Alright, coming right up, please wait a moment. While waiting, Jiraiya explained to Taichi that Tsunade had entrusted him with teaching Taichi for the foreseeable future. Taichi was speechless after hearing this. Compared to Jiraiya, an outsider, Taichi understood Tsunade's emotional journey during this period better. From her initial enthusiastic teaching and constant attention, she gradually became impatient, and sometimes when Taichi found her, he could smell alcohol on her. Although Tsunade had always been dedicated and responsible in teaching Taichi, in other aspects, it was really hard to say. Perhaps she was genuinely impatient and wanted to quit, and conveniently, someone who could take over, Jiraiya, had arrived. Of course, this was just Taichi's own speculation, and he naturally couldn't explain it to Jiraiya. No matter what, Tsunade had been extremely kind to him. At the same time, Konoha Casino. At this moment, Tsunade was commanding the scene, surrounded by people at her gambling table. I don't believe it, it can't be, small, again this time. Just as she placed her chips on, small, all the other gamblers uniformly placed their chips on, big, making a vein throb on Tsunade's forehead. Suddenly, Tsunade let out a big sneeze. What's going on? Is that brat Taichi talking about me? Tsunade wondered. Never mind, dealer, open it. Tsunade then threw herself back into her booming, losing money business. The next day, after finishing his morning internship, Tai couldn't find Tsunade. Left with no choice, he headed to Training Ground 3, where he had agreed to meet Jiraiya yesterday. As he approached the training ground, he saw Jiraiya already waiting there. Tai quickly hurried over to Jiraiya. Lord Jiraiya, I apologize, I'm late. Haha, it's fine. I know you have an internship until noon. Besides, we still have 15 minutes until our agreed time, so you're not late. Jiraiya said casually. Also, don't call me, Lord. I've been teaching you for a while now, just call me, Sensei. Alright, Jiraiya Sensei. Tai readily agreed, after all, he was the one benefiting. Before we start training, let me understand something, do you know your chakra nature? Tai was stumped by Jiraiya's question. He had never had money to buy chakra paper to test his nature before, always thinking he should have fire and wind attributes. Later, when he had money, he forgot to buy chakra paper to test it. I haven't tested it yet. It should be fire and wind, I guess. I find it quite easy to learn ninjutsu of these two natures. Tai said uncertainly. So that's how it is. It was unclear what Jiraiya meant by this, whether Tsunade had forgotten to test Tai for even this, or if Tai himself was careless. Here, this is chakra paper. Do you know how to use it? Jiraiya asked. I do. Tai took the chakra paper and channeled chakra into it. The paper split into 3 parts, one burned to ashes, another seemed to be cut into small pieces, and the third gradually became damp and soft. Looking at the chakra paper's reaction, Jiraiya exclaimed in surprise, it's fire, wind, and water. This combination is quite rare. Is there a problem, Jiraiya sensei? Tai asked, looking at the residue in his hand, puzzled. No, it's just that this combination is quite rare. Fire, wind, and lightning are common, but fire, wind, and water are very uncommon. Jiraiya sat cross-legged on a bluestone in Training Ground 3, with dappled sunlight filtering through the leaves dancing in his white hair. Tai sat opposite him, clutching his ninja tool pouch, listening intently to what Jiraiya was saying. Chakra nature transformation is like molding a rice ball. Jiraiya suddenly picked up a stone, the clay crumbled into fine sand in his palm. Nature transformation is about shaping chakra into different forms. The broken stone trickled through his fingers, forming a flame pattern on the grass. Of course, before you shape it, you need to understand the characteristics of each nature. Now, let's talk about the nature transformation of your three attributes. Jiraiya raised his right hand, and the chakra in his hand transformed into the fire nature. The originally light blue chakra gradually turned red, then suddenly burst into flames. Look at this. What do you think are the characteristics of fire nature chakra? It's burning, and high temperature, maybe also explosiveness. Tai answered uncertainly. Those are all correct. Fire nature usually involves these, but it's not comprehensive. Chakra nature follows people's perception. Whatever you perceive fire nature to be, that's how it can manifest. Of course, things that defy common sense are impossible. And what people generally perceive is that fire nature is extreme heat. Jiraiya explained. Tai nodded thoughtfully. Chakra is produced by the combination of physical and spiritual energy, so chakra nature not only exhibits the physical laws of the real world but also the idealistic laws of the spiritual world. This was Tai's understanding of chakra nature after hearing the explanation. Next, let's look at the wind nature. Jiraiya waved his palm, and a surge of chakra erupted, interspersed with many tiny flying wind blades. Wind nature should not only have the explosiveness and pervasiveness of wind but also embody its cutting power. The wind release. Great breakthrough you performed yesterday was just strong wind, and that's not enough. You also need to grasp the cutting aspect of wind to make its power even greater. Finally, let's talk about the water nature. If there's no geographical advantage, unleashing the power of water release requires a vast amount of chakra. Jiraiya scrutinized Tai. You don't have an advantage in that regard. Your current chakra reserves are too small, not yet at the level of a Chunin. However, you're still young. Once you pass 10 years old, your body will undergo a rapid development phase, and your chakra reserves will increase quickly then. After hearing Jiraiya's explanation, Tai finally understood why his attributes were no worse than a Chunin's, yet his chakra reserves were not as abundant. It turned out to be an age issue, he hadn't even started developing yet. Water release emphasizes surging power, immense force, and of course, the fluidity and continuous nature of water. Jiraiya continued to explain water release. Now I'm going to teach you a B rank ninjutsu, fire release, fire dragon flame bullet. Remember the hand seal sequence for this jutsu is ram, horse, snake, dragon, rat, ox, tiger. Jiraiya slowly formed the hand seals to allow Tai to see clearly. The key to this jutsu is maintaining the chakra's form. As the hand seals were completed, Jiraiya took a deep breath, then exhaled a concentrated stream of fire from his mouth. After ejecting about a meter, the fire stream suddenly expanded, resembling a fire dragon charging forward. The ground along its path turned a crystallized orange after the fire dragon passed. Did you see it clearly? You try it. Tai inhaled the scent of sulfur in the air, calmed his excited heart, and slowly formed the hand seals one by one, carefully perceiving the chakra flow corresponding to each seal. Finally, with all the seals completed, Tai took a deep breath and, for the first time, exhaled a fire dragon 5 meters long. That's incredible. To succeed on your first try, I thought you'd need at least half a day of practice. Jiraiya said with undisguised admiration. Tai smiled at his words and began to form the hand seals for the second time. This time, the execution was faster than the last, and its power was also greater than before. The fire dragon swept across a 10-meter space in front of him, leaving Jiraiya on the side wide-eyed. The improvement was too significant. You've pretty much learned this ninjutsu now. The next step is continuous practice. Jiraiya checked the time. It's getting late now. I also have a C rank wind release, gale palm and a B rank water release, water wall here. Take them back and look at them yourself first. We'll learn these ninjutsu later. That's all for today. Thank you, Jiraiya-sensei. Tai expressed his gratitude. Then, Jiraiya-sensei, why don't you come to my place today? I'll treat you to dinner. You can taste my cooking. Oh, sounds good. Tsunade always praises your cooking. Today I'll finally get to experience it. With that, Jiraiya put his arm around Tai's shoulder, and the two slowly disappeared into the distance. At home, after seeing Jiraiya off, Tai looked at the messy cups and plates on the table and couldn't help but smile wryly. Jiraiya-sensei really didn't hold back. Even if it's delicious, you shouldn't eat like that. Thinking of Jiraiya wobbling with his hand on his stomach just now, he shook his head repeatedly. After tidying up everything at home, Tai went to his study and took out the two scrolls Jiraiya had given him: Wind Release, Gale Palm, and Water Release, Water Wall. Opening one scroll, Tai recognized the handwriting and knew that Jiraiya had probably stayed up all night to write it. It meticulously described the execution process of Gale Palm, the hand seal sequence, and even the detailed function of each seal, showing how much effort he had put into it. Opening the other scroll for Water Wall, it was the same, simply and clearly explained, even allowing a novice to learn from it. This level of care far exceeded Tsunade's simple entrustment. Tai was touched, but currently unable to repay him. He could only engrave this kindness in his heart for now. Jiraiya was indeed a good teacher. He was able to provide targeted instruction based on each student's characteristics, allowing them to fully develop their talents. This also led to each of Jiraiya's disciples achieving extraordinary accomplishments, whether it was Minato Namikaze of Konoha, or Yahiko, Nagato, and Conan of the Land of Rain. For the past half-month, Taichi Matsushita went to Jiraiya for lessons every afternoon, sometimes even studying for the entire afternoon. For Taichi, this was both an opportunity for rapid progress and a deep bond. Although Jiraiya had not officially accepted Taichi as a disciple, Taichi regarded Jiraiya as a true master in his heart. Of course, the same went for Tsunade. Although she was very irresponsible and disappeared after teaching Taichi for only a few days, Taichi would never forget Tsunade's contributions and kindness. Today was the last day of the holiday. In the morning, Taichi had already completed the handover with Director Fujita and President Bawako at the hospital, and together they collected their internship salaries for the past 2 months. Although it wasn't much, it was the first money Taichi had truly earned himself, and he was very happy. In the afternoon, at Training Ground 11, cicadas chirped, carrying heat waves that swept across Training Ground 11. Taichi stood on the riverbank's gravel, sweat dripping from his jaw, evaporating into white smoke on the scorching stones. Jiraiya sat cross-legged on a tree stump on the opposite bank, juggling 3 shuriken, their metallic gleam flickering between his fingers. This is the last practical combat lesson. Let me see how much you've improved in the past half-month. Jiraiya suddenly raised his hand, and the shuriken's whistling sound tore through the heat wave. As Taichi leaned back to dodge, the short sword at his waist was already unsheathed, its blade clashing with the subsequent 2 projectiles, sparking. The hum of the blade cutting through the air suddenly intensified. Taichi's figure left afterimages on the water, and the chakra-infused blade glowed a faint blue. Jiraiya's hand, moving to form a hand seal, suddenly paused. Taichi's speed was too fast. Seeing Taichi quickly approaching, Jiraiya pulled out a kunai from his ninja pouch to meet him. Clang! The moment the kunai parried the blade, Jiraiya's forehead protector was lifted by the strong wind. He retreated half a step into the river, and before the ripples on the water could spread, Taichi had already completed the last tiger seal. Wind Release, Great Breakthrough. A whirlwind, carrying river sand, rushed towards him. Jiraiya narrowed his eyes, and his pupils constricted when he saw the cold glint flickering within the sand. Several transparent wind blades, mixed with the strong wind, blew towards him. Half a month ago, Taichi's great breakthrough only produced strong winds, at most blowing people away. Now, his great breakthrough concealed many wind blades. Once hit, it could tear flesh and skin. Jiraiya didn't meet it head-on. He jumped back a step, quickly formed hand seals, and slapped the water with one hand. Water Release, Water Wall. The rising water curtain shattered into countless droplets under the wind blades, refracting a colorful rainbow light. Fire Release, Fire Dragon Flame Bullet. The boy's clear shout pierced through the water curtain. A crimson line of fire, passing through the rainbow light, suddenly expanded, transforming into a 3-meter-long fire dragon. Jiraiya leaned back to dodge the flames, the smell of singed hair wafting to his nose. Using the momentum of leaning back, he propped himself on the ground with one hand, and his chakra-infused right leg swept towards Taichi's abdomen. Splash! Amidst the splashing water, Taichi's kicked figure suddenly turned into a wooden stake. Just as Jiraiya was about to turn around, the whistling sound from above his head made him instinctively form a hand seal. Earth Release, Earth-style wall. The moment the rock wall rose, shuriken carrying wind blades had already cut off half of the stone wall. Your timing is good, but. Before Jiraiya could finish, the river water beneath his feet suddenly boiled. As he leapt up abruptly, a 2-meter diameter water vortex erupted from the water, engulfing him in midair. Within the crystal-clear water curtain, Tai Chi's hands, maintaining the snake seal, trembled slightly. This was a variant application of water release. Water wall, where the water curtain, instead of rising in front of the user, directly rose from beneath the enemy's feet to attack them. The water vortex collapsed with a roar, and a soaking wet Jiraiya landed on the riverbank rocks. He shook the water droplets from his white hair, looking at the boy kneeling on one knee in the middle of the river, gasping for breath. The setting sun cast a long shadow of Tai Chi, his soaking ninja uniform clinging to his still developing body. His chakra fluctuations were clearly chaotic, yet he was still forcefully trying to gather it. That last water wall, Jiraiya wiped the water from his face. The scroll didn't say it could be used like that. He noticed the boy's pale lips, a sign of chakra exhaustion. But the water vortex just now, both in scale and control precision, far surpassed the level of an ordinary chunin. Tai Chi stood up, leaning on his sword hilt, the sensation of river water flowing over his calves making him slightly clearer-headed. You said water release emphasizes adapting to the terrain. Before he finished speaking, 3 shuriken with explosive tags were already stuck around him. Amidst the roar, the boy's leaping figure was engulfed in flames. As the smoke and dust cleared, a light blue water curtain, like an inverted bowl, protected Tai Chi. Ripples on the surface of the water wall had not yet dissipated, and the boy's fingertips, maintaining the snake seal, trembled slightly, yet he still managed a smile. Yesterday, when you were eating your 5th bowl of tonkatsu ramen, you said anything could happen in actual combat. Jiraiya suddenly burst into laughter, startling the birds roosting in the forest. He walked up to Tai Chi, who was slumped in the shallow water, his shadow enveloping the boy's pale face. You dare to maintain the water wall even when your chakra is depleted. His rough hand pressed on the wet black hair, but he turned to look at the receding water curtain. To be able to turn a defensive ninjutsu into a trap, this adaptability is more valuable than the ninjutsu itself. Dusk deepened, and the cries of returning birds came from the forest at the edge of the training ground. Jiraiya pulled out his frog wallet, and 3 discount coupons, accompanied by a soft chakra sound, floated onto Tai Chi's lap. As a graduation gift, I'll treat you to a double portion of char siu tonight. He turned and walked towards Konoha, the setting sun casting his shadow on the boy. Next time you see Tsunade, tell her the trouble she threw my way. His white hair lifted with the evening breeze, was a pleasant surprise. Jiraiya-sensei, are you leaving? Tai Chi shouted at Jiraiya's retreating back. I'm going on a mission. I've delayed it for over half a month. If I don't go now, someone will get angry. Jiraiya's voice, carried by the evening wind, came from afar. After bidding farewell to Jiraiya, Tai Chi went alone to Ichiraku Ramen. He presented the discount coupons Jiraiya had given him, and the owner quickly served him a large bowl of tonkatsu ramen. Looking at the overflowing bowl of ramen, Tai Chi couldn't help but feel a little sad. Before, when he ate ramen, there was always someone beside him, laughing and scolding as they pleased. But now, it was just Tai Chi by himself. After quickly finishing his ramen, Tai Chi composed himself and hurried home. He wanted to summarize the gains from this summer vacation, and he was already eager to do so. At home, Tai Chi looked at his newly reorganized status panel, his heart filled with a sense of accomplishment. Name: Matsushita Tai Chi. Occupation: Ninja Apprentice LV8, 1024-1400. Talents: Diligence can compensate for lack of talent, academic overachiever. Age: 6 years old. Constitution: 15. Strength: 17. Agility: 15. Spirit: 20. Chakra: 5000-5800. Attribute points: 10. Skill points: 11. Fire Release Nature Transformation LV3, 356-400. Wind Release Nature Transformation LV3, 373-400. Water Release Nature Transformation LV3, 173-400. Yang Release Nature Transformation LV4, 537-600. Skills: Basic Taijutsu LV10, 463 2000s. Basic Meditation LV10, 634 2000s. Chakra Cultivation Technique LV10, 944 2000s. Ninja Tool Throwing LV9, 345 1600s. 3 Basic Jutsu LV9, 12 1600s. Hitaki Kenjutsu LV7, 53 1200s. Fire Release. Flame Bullet LV8, 356 1400s. Phoenix Flower Jutsu LV9, 124 1600s. Fire Dragon Flame Bullet LV4, 302 600s. Wind Release. Great Breakthrough LV8, 36 1400s. Violent Wind Palm LV4, 352 600s. Water Release. Water Wall LV4, 257 600s. Medical Ninjutsu. Healing Jutsu LV10, 1467 2000s. Mystical Palm Technique LV6, 935 1000s. Delicate Illness Extraction Technique LV6, 467 1000s. Chakra Scalpel LV5, 312 800s. Evaluation. As an ordinary person, your lack of chakra is your fatal weakness. His physical attributes, the three main ones, had all increased due to the intense training over the summer. Agility, in particular, increased by 2 points. It could be said that Tai Chi's physical fitness alone had reached the genin level, not to mention his constitution and spirit, which far exceeded that of a genin. The biggest change was the improvement of various skills, several of which had reached LV10. Seeing the experience points sharply increase to 2000 at LV10, Tai Chi estimated that when LV10 was maxed out, the panel would reveal unexpected surprises. Perhaps the only thing Tai Chi wasn't satisfied with was, as the evaluation stated, his chakra. Although the evaluations were always annoying, they were always spot on. Tai Chi's chakra was too low. Currently, Tai Chi's chakra barely reached the entry-level Chunin standard of 5,000 points. Assuming a basic C-rank ninjutsu consumes 500 points and a B-rank ninjutsu consumes 1000 points, Tai Chi's current chakra reserves could still release 10 flame bullets or 5 fire dragon flame bullets. This was still for the most basic release. If complex operations were added, such as extending the release time or increasing the release power, the number would be even smaller. According to Jiraiya, a ninja's chakra only grows rapidly after the age of 10, accompanied by physical development. This growth rate follows a parabolic curve between the ages of 10 and 35 for most ninjas, and the time before that is merely for building a foundation. He also advised Tai Chi not to rush his chakra reserves. Tai Chi's current chakra already far exceeded that of an average child, and he absolutely should not over-cultivate chakra due to its lack, as this would damage his body's potential. Tai Chi, of course, understood Jiraiya's good intentions and immediately promised not to over-cultivate chakra. However, whenever Tai Chi thought of those with incredibly vast chakra reserves, he couldn't help but feel a pang of envy. It was then that Tai Chi resolved to thoroughly study chakra nature transformation in the future, striving to synthesize a Kekkei Genkai himself and break through his own chakra limits. But overall, the current Tai Chi could definitely dominate the Tai Chi from before the summer, and even a 2-on-1 or 3-on-1 fight would not be a problem. The new semester had arrived, and classmates who had been separated for a long time were once again gathered, with endless topics to discuss. Over there, the chubby Choji Akamichi was showing off to Shikamaru Nara and Ino Yamanaka about the delicious food he had eaten a few days ago. Meanwhile, over here, Obito Uchiha and Kakashi Hitaki were once again engaged in an argument. When Taichi Matsushita walked into the classroom, this was the harmonious scene he witnessed. Taichi, I heard you interned at the hospital during the summer vacation. Guy was the first to spot Taichi entering, rushing over with sparks and lightning, then belatedly asked. Taichi rolled his eyes. You're probably the last person in the class to know. Ah. How could that be? Does everyone else know? Guy looked astonished. How is it that he was the only one unaware of this news? At this moment, Rin Nohara, who was busy mediating the argument, also noticed Taichi. She forcibly pulled the bickering Kakashi and Obito over. Taichi, thank you so much for last time at the hospital. She knew that if it hadn't been for Taichi, other doctors might not have used ninjutsu to treat her injury, and she would have suffered much more. Kakashi and Obito, having realized the situation, also expressed their gratitude. Haha, Rin, you're too polite. We're friends, even if it wasn't at the hospital, I would still help, Taichi said magnanimously. By the way, how did everyone find out about my internship later, to the point where even Director Fujita got involved? Taichi was puzzled. Rin and Kakashi simultaneously turned their faces towards Obito. Ah, haha, I accidentally let it slip once when we were out playing with everyone. I didn't expect everyone to run to the hospital to find you, Obito said, a bit embarrassed. Seeing Obito's expression, Kakashi and Rin were speechless. It wasn't accidentally said. Obito had clearly blabbed it out while showing off. Of course, they wouldn't expose Obito at that moment. Alright. Taichi didn't care much. By the way, Kakashi, guy, let's go to the small forest after school. I'll show you the results of my training during this period. Alright. Youth is all about constant challenges. I'm already burning with passion. Guy said, tears welling up in his eyes. Just then, the class bell rang, and students gradually returned to their seats, beginning the first lesson of the new semester. After school, in the small forest. The sounds of clash, clang, bang, from fists and feet clashing continuously echoed, as Taichi and his two friends, who had agreed to spar after school, were now engaged in combat. Taichi was currently sparring with Guy in taijutsu, while Kakashi watched from the side. The two had exchanged dozens of blows, and Taichi realized that not only had he improved, but Guy's progress was also significant. After another clash, both simultaneously stopped their movements. Taichi, you're amazing. I underwent special training during the vacation, and I didn't expect you to fight me to a standstill with just taijutsu, Guy said, a little dejected. Before Taichi could offer comfort, Guy's fighting spirit reignited. This is youth. Never give up, persevere and work hard. With that, he ran off, his words echoing from afar. I'm going to train first. Today I have to run 10 laps around Konoha, and if I don't finish. His figure gradually disappeared into the distance. This scene left Taichi and Kakashi with black lines on their foreheads. Taichi, do you need to rest for a bit? Kakashi asked, slowly stretching his limbs. Okay, just a moment. Taichi adjusted his breathing, slowly recovering the stamina he had expended during his fight with Guy. 10 minutes later, the two stood facing each other. As a leaf drifted between them, Taichi launched the first attack. Taichi charged directly at Kakashi, throwing 3 shuriken with one hand while simultaneously drawing the short sword from his back. Kakashi didn't hesitate either, drawing his own short blade, deflecting the incoming shuriken, and meeting Taichi's attack. The sounds of clink, 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 from their short blades clashing continuously rang out. In just 4 or 5 seconds, they had exchanged over a dozen blows. After a few more moves, the two passed each other. Taichi seized the opportunity to form hand signs. Fire style. Phoenix Fire Jutsu. Taichi exhaled nearly 30 fireballs in one breath, attacking Kakashi from different directions. Kakashi was no slouch either. He quickly formed hand signs, then slammed his hands on the ground, causing an earth wall to rise. It was the earth style wall. The incoming fireballs continuously struck the earth wall, creating boom, boom sounds. Kakashi, who was about to form hand signs for his next ninjutsu, felt something was off. The sound was already beyond the normal 12 fireballs of Phoenix Fire, and it was far too much. Before Kakashi's ninjutsu was ready, the earth wall collapsed under the relentless bombardment of fireballs, and the remaining fireballs continued to rush towards Kakashi. This caught Kakashi off guard. Taichi seized the opportunity to unleash another wind style, great breakthrough, and the strong gale, carrying the previous fireballs, surged towards Kakashi. Taichi also rapidly advanced, using the wind to his advantage. Kakashi, who had narrowly dodged the attacks of two ninjutsu, was now faced with Taichi's close-range ambush. He struggled to cope, as losing the initiative meant he could only constantly defend. After a dozen exchanges, he finally managed to regain the upper hand by relying on his greater familiarity with the Hitaki style of swordsmanship. Taichi wasn't discouraged by this. Kakashi had a swordsmanship master for a father to guide him, while he could only practice diligently. To be able to fight like this with swordsmanship, he was already very satisfied. Just then, Kakashi launched an offensive, also using fire style, but he employed the Great Fireball Jutsu. The fireball, over 2 meters tall, completely obscured Taichi's vision. Kakashi then seized the chance to use the clone jutsu, and immediately, both he and his clone charged at Taichi simultaneously. Taichi remained calm in the face of the high-temperature fireball. While rapidly retreating to avoid the fireball, he also used the clone jutsu, taking advantage of the obscured vision. When both of them had avoided the fireball, they were instantly dumbfounded. Two Kakashis faced two Taichis. Both sides observed briefly, then each selected a target and began to fight. With two bangs, the two clones dissipated, and the main bodies continued to clash with their swordsmanship. This battle continued until both of them had completely exhausted their chakra, ending in a draw. Both of them sat on tree stumps, slowly recovering their chakra. The exhilarating match had been thoroughly enjoyable for both, and they eagerly recounted their experiences from the vacation. When Kakashi learned that Taichi had not only interned at the hospital but also received guidance from the Sannin, he couldn't help but marvel at Taichi's good fortune. No wonder he had made such great progress. Taichi was now completely on par with him. Moreover, Kakashi was certain that Taichi hadn't given his all in the recent battle. He had only used 2 ninjutsu at the beginning, relying solely on swordsmanship to fight him later. The setting sun gradually lengthened their shadows. The two young men, having rested, bid each other farewell and headed towards their respective homes. Passing through the bustling streets, as he got closer to home, the number of people dwindled until there was not a single soul left on the road. Taichi felt something was amiss. Suddenly, the hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. 3 shuriken were embedded in the ground before his feet, their tips glowing with an ominous purple light. Good reaction. Danzo emerged from the shadows of the wall, the sound of his staff tapping against the bluestones making the air still. Taichi immediately formed hand signs, and 3 smoke bombs exploded in his palm. Fire style. Phoenix fire. 16 fireballs pierced through the thick smoke, but were swallowed by an suddenly rising earth-style wall 2 meters from Danzo. Amidst flying debris, Taichi drew his sword and leapt. When a diagonal slash was parried by the staff, he smoothly spun and kicked towards his opponent's ribs. A chain suddenly shot out from Danzo's sleeve, its iron rings whizzing past Taichi's cheek and gouging deep holes in the wall. To be able to withstand a few moves from this old man, Danzo shook off the brick dust from the chain. You're comparable to some Chunin. Taichi gasped, wiping a trace of blood from the corner of his mouth. His chakra was mostly depleted. He saw 3 root ninja blocking the alley, the moonlight illuminating their demonic animal masks. Come to Root, and you will receive true training, Danzo said, using the tip of his staff to pick up Taichi's dropped short sword. Medical ninjutsu combined with assassination techniques would also be quite spectacular. Thank you for the offer. Taichi secretly gathered chakra in his heels, but the Ninja Academy rules. Those rules are only for restraining mediocrities. Danzo suddenly raised his voice, startling crows from under the eaves. Your sword shouldn't be used to cut bandages. Taichi took half a step back and stepped into a puddle, the water reflecting Danzo's sinister single eye. Last time, Lord Hokage said. Bang! The staff smashed the puddle, Danzo's face contorted in the splashing water. My root is specifically for training Anbu for the Hokage. Besides, your talent shouldn't be wasted in a sick room. A cold whirlwind swirled in the alley. He gripped his sword hilt and looked directly at Danzo. If Lord Hokage agrees, I will report to Root tomorrow. The air suddenly became so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Danzo's single eye narrowed into a thin line, then he suddenly let out a cold, owl-like laugh. Very good, very good. As he turned, his black robe billowed, and a kunai grazed Taichi's hair before embedding itself in the wall, a display of power and a warning. The 3 root ninja also vanished with Danzo. Taichi leaned against the wall and slowly sat down. Today had been truly exhilarating. The moonlight illuminated a tattered Hokage rock poster at the alley entrance, the 3rd Hokage's stone face faintly visible in the night. It seems I'll have to find the Hokage tomorrow. I wonder if I'll even be able to see him. If not, I'll have to find Tsunade again, but now I don't know where she is. Taichi felt a headache coming on. The next day, Taichi arrived at school bright and early to find teacher Yamada and ask for leave. Yamada looked at Taichi in surprise. It was the first time he had encountered someone asking for leave on the second day of school, but considering Taichi's usual performance, he readily agreed. With approval granted, Taichi wasted no time. After leaving school, he immediately headed towards the Hokage building. This was Taichi's first time at the Hokage building. The bustling building didn't appear tall in the grand scheme of Konoha, but against the backdrop of the distant Hokage rock, it exuded a sense of solemnity. As soon as Taichi entered the Hokage building, a Chunin stopped him. "Hey, kid, this isn't a place for little brats like you who aren't even genin." Taichi looked over, realizing it was a staff member. He wasn't intimidated and walked forward to ask, "I want to see Lord Hokage, could you tell me how to get there?" "Kid, do you think you can just see the Hokage whenever you want?" the Chunin said with a hint of impatience. "Then please help me convey a message," Taichi said calmly. "Tell Lord Hokage that Taichi Matsushita, Lady Tsunade's disciple, has something to discuss." The Chunin stared deeply at Taichi, as if trying to discern the truth of his words through his gaze. "Wait here," he said, then turned and walked down the stairs. "Thank you." Watching the Chunin leave, Taichi began to survey his surroundings. This was the mission hall, the place where ninjas accepted missions. Even early in the morning, many ninjas came to handle mission handovers, which showed the prosperity of Konoha. After all, a ninja village survived on missions. About 10 minutes later, the Chunin reappeared. "Come with me, Lord Hokage wants to see you." He then led Taichi to the door of the Hokage's office. "This is it, go on in yourself." After the Chunin left, Taichi took a deep breath, adjusted his mood, and thought, success or failure rests on this one move. Knock, knock. "Come in." Taichi pushed open the door, and what greeted his eyes was the smiling Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, looking at him. Tsunade's disciple, the Hokage teased. Taichi's face flushed slightly, and he said apologetically, "I'm sorry, Lord Hokage, I resorted to this tactic just to see you." He then bowed in apology. "Haha, it's alright, it's alright. I know about your situation with Tsunade. Although she hasn't officially taken you as a disciple, she is indeed training you as her successor, so there's no problem in saying you're her disciple," the Hokage said with a laugh. "Is that true? I always thought I wasn't doing well enough," Taichi said, feigning modesty. "You're already doing very well," Hiruzen Sarutobi affirmed. "Isn't today the first day of school? Why did you think of coming to see me?" Hiruzen Sarutobi ended the topic and asked about the real matter. "It's like this, Lord Hokage." Taichi then explained yesterday's events to the Hokage in detail. "Because I am a student at the Ninja Academy, and Lord Hokage is the principal of the school, that makes me Lord Hokage's student. So, of course, I need Lord Hokage's permission to go anywhere." Taichi said sincerely. Hiruzen Sarutobi listened in silence, then picked up his pipe and began to puff on it, the smoke quickly obscuring his face. "Alright, Taichi, don't worry about this matter. Just focus on your studies at the Ninja Academy from now on," Hiruzen Sarutobi's voice eventually rang out. "Yes, Lord Hokage, I will follow your arrangements," Taichi said without hesitation, emphasizing his obedience. "Then you can go back now." Hiruzen Sarutobi began to dismiss him. Taichi left the Hokage's office as instructed, not forgetting to gently close the office door behind him. Watching Taichi leave, Hiruzen Sarutobi's expression instantly turned grim. "Danzo, you are explicitly defying my orders." After leaving the Hokage's office, Taichi went to the training ground in the small forest. Danzo's arrival last night had truly stimulated Taichi. Especially his powerlessness when facing Danzo's attack made him even more eager to improve his strength, but this was impossible. The improvement of strength was never an overnight matter, it required the accumulation of daily effort. Helplessly, what Taichi lacked now was time. For now, he could only rely on more diligent practice to complete his daily accumulation. Looking at his attribute panel, Taichi regained his confidence. He already had such a great advantage, what more could he be dissatisfied with? Now, he just needed to train systematically, and sooner or later, he would be able to pin Danzo to the ground and rub him in the dirt. Thinking these thoughts, Taichi put aside all distractions and began to do his exercises one by one. Konoha Root Base. Lord Danzo, Lord Hokage has arrived. He is currently in the main hall. The ninja who instant ed into the office reported on one knee. Strange, why would Hiruzen come here? Danzo thought to himself. Unable to figure it out, he could only get up and head to the hall. Hiruzen, it's been a long time since you've been to Route. Danzo's sinister voice echoed before he even arrived. Footsteps echoed down the cold, damp corridor, growing closer. Hiruzen Sarutobi's Hokage cloak brushed against the water droplets condensed on the walls. The candlelight in the root hall flickered in unison as Danzo stepped in, casting his elongated shadow on the dim walls. Since when did the Hokage need to personally inspect a rat's nest? Danzo's cane thumped dully on the ground, and three subordinates wearing boar masks silently followed behind him. Hiruzen took off his cloak and draped it over his arm, twirling his pipe between his fingers. Yesterday, the medical unit submitted 3 reports of poisoning. The symptoms are identical to those of the Rain Ninja experimental subjects who disappeared last month. He stopped 5 paces away, just avoiding the shadow of the iron chains hanging from the ceiling. For the future of Konoha, necessary sacrifices, including laying hands on children from the Ninja Academy. Hiruzen's suddenly raised voice made the candelabra's iron frame hum. Hiruzen's fingers, gripping the pipe, turned white, and ash fluttered onto his flame-embroidered robe. Now even 6-year-old children are to be included in your route. His talent can only be fully utilized in route. Bang! The sound of the pipe shattering against the stone pillar startled the creatures hiding in the dark. Teacher Tobarama established the Ninja Academy because he didn't want children to go to war. Your current actions go against teacher's original intention. Don't mention Teacher Tobarama to me. I am the one who truly inherited teacher's will, Hiruzen. You are too weak, whether it's towards Taichi Matsushita, towards the Uchiha, or towards other ninja villages, Danzo said sinisterly. You always use tender lies to raise beasts, waiting for them to grow strong enough to tear out your throat. I am the Hokage. Hiruzen suddenly roared, his chakra causing most of the candles above to instantly extinguish. In the darkness, only the furious flames in his eyes flickered. Teacher Tobarama chose me, not you. The moment the boar-masked figures gripped their sword hilts, Danzo raised his hand to stop them. But this action clearly stimulated Hiruzen Sarutobi even more. Was this Konoha's route or Danzo's route? They even dared to draw their swords on him, the Hokage. Danzo's voice continued to ring out. Just wait and see, when the Cloud Village's blade is at that kid's throat. Enough. Hiruzen grabbed his cloak and turned, unwilling to argue with Danzo here any longer. The matter of Taichi Matsushita ends here. Do not go looking for him again. Furthermore, he is already studying with Tsunade and Jiraiya, and you wouldn't want your laboratory to be smashed, would you? Hiruzen Sarutobi issued his final warning. The resounding crash of the iron door closing shook dust from the wall, and Danzo's cane deeply wedged into a crack in the stone. But remembering Tsunade, Danzo had no choice but to give up. It wasn't worth clashing with Tsunade for someone without special talent. Thanks for watching.